Hello everyone and welcome back. We're live. We've got our end-to-end hockey live draft video. Very intriguing stuff here. The draft is upon us. So very interesting to note there, we've got a lot of very intriguing things. So we're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things in today's video involving all of the action that happens on draft day. I'm going to be with you here so long as the Wi-Fi my thing keeps connected for the next two and a half hours, somewhere around there. So it's going to be around that long. And then we're going to be able to also bring you another live stream tomorrow. I plan on having a couple of videos come out maybe later tonight, we'll see. For sure after the draft tomorrow to recap some of the craziness that's going to happen. We've already seen a couple of interesting moves, so at this point in time, the draft is coming, but it hasn't started yet, so we'll figure out what happens after this point. But for the time being, we've started our draft, so if you are coming, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. The draft is about to begin. Of course, they've got the introductions and things like that, so it's probably going to be another 10-15 minutes before the Islanders on the clock with the first overall pick. But I do want to discuss some very interesting stuff that happened very interesting stuff that happened so far earlier today, because there was a ton of things that actually happened. So first, the New York Islanders have acquired from Montreal Canadiens. They moved to the Montreal Canadiens. Noah Dobson. The Islanders get the 16th, 17th overall pick, and they also get Emil Heineman. That was one move that happened today. A secondary move that happened earlier today was between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche moved Charlie Coyle as well as Miles Wood to the Columbus Blue Jackets for Gavin Brindley, a second-round pick in 2027, and number 77th overall in tomorrow's draft. So very interesting to note there are lots of very intriguing moves that happened. There are also a handful of signings. We'll get to all of that in depth in a couple of minutes of time. Just give me a couple seconds here. I've got to go check a few things out, but lots of very, very intriguing things. Lots of very intriguing things as we have our live video here for the End-to-End Hockey channel. Once again, if you guys are here, thank you for supporting the channel. I would have never been able to get to 500 subscribers without you. So in today's video, like we said, we got the draft. So I'm trying to keep tabs on things. I've got some other things here to just keeping tabs on what's happening. So I'll bring you as much live updates as I can. So it's definitely going to be a very interesting draft. If there's background noise, I'm sorry. There's a couple of things that are happening. So I do apologize if there's any background noise or things like that. But we definitely have a lot of very intriguing things that are going to be happening today in today's video. So lots of intriguing things here. Once again, if you haven't already, keep up to date with it. Just give me a second here. I've got to check something out. So definitely, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this. So once again, as long as you guys are here, I thank you for it. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming. So, I'm sorry if the stream's a little bit choppy. My Wi-Fi is not the best. I'm sure all of you longtime viewers know that from my previous live streams. So just try and bear with me as much as I can. But we got a very interesting draft. So as you can see here on the sides, you've got the top 32 picks, the picks that are going to be happening today. I'm going to hopefully update this for tomorrow's, but you've got the first overall pick being the Islanders, the second overall pick being San Jose's, third overall is Chicago's, fourth overall is Utah's, fifth overall is Nashville's, sixth overall is Philadelphia's, seventh overall is Boston's, eighth overall is Seattle's, ninth overall is Buffalo, 10th overall is Anaheim. Pittsburgh has back-to-back picks. Then you have 13th overall Detroit, 14th overall Columbus, 15th overall Vancouver, 16th overall Montreal, 17th overall Montreal again, but those two Montreal picks were actually traded earlier today in the Dobson deal. So 16 and 17 is actually belonging to the New York Islanders. 18th overall is the Calgary Flames. 19th overall is the St. Louis Blues. 20th overall is the Jackets. 21st is Ottawa. 22nd is Philly. 23rd is Nashville. 24th is Los Angeles. 25th is Carolina. 26th 25th is Chicago, 26th Nashville, then the Capitals, Jets, Canes, Sharks, Flyers, and Flames. So lots of intriguing things. There's a very likely chance we could see even more interesting things. We could see the Sharks. There's been some rumblings about them moving second overall. There's been some rumblings about the Hawks moving third overall. Some rumblings about Utah moving fourth. And there's also been a couple of other ones. Like Nashville has 3 first-round picks. Do they move one of them? Pittsburgh has 2 first-round picks. Do they move one of them? The Islanders now have 3 first-round picks. Do they move some of them? Philly has a couple of first-rounders. Calgary has a couple of first-rounders. Like there's a lot of teams here who have multiple picks. Columbus is another one. So do some of these teams wind up keeping their picks, drafting players, or do they wind up moving on from players? So we'll have to wait and see on that. But lots of very intriguing things happening here today. So once again, just bear with me as best as I can here at this point in time. But we've definitely got a lot of very intriguing things happening today for this video. So keep up to date. So they still haven't started the draft, so might as well go over some of the very intriguing things we saw today. So first, we saw the New York Islanders, Montreal Canadiens pull off a blockbuster trade. I have a video coming out about it after the draft talking about this. But it's a very, very intriguing trade. The Montreal Canadiens acquired Noah Dobson and then signed him because he was an RFA to an 8-year contract extension with the AV of $9.5 million. They acquired him from the New York Islanders in exchange for the 2 picks on the draft that are the Montreal Canadiens logos. So that's pick number 16 and pick number 17, as well as Emil Heineman. So this was a very interesting trade. I'll go in depth about it in my video coming out later on. But I mean, this is a massive trade for both sides. For the Habs, they had 2 first-round picks. There was really no need for them to use their first-round picks because they have a plethora of very, very solid prospects in their prospect pool. So they didn't really need a whole bunch more prospects. They needed players who could really help them take the next step because they barely made the playoffs this year and they want to try and take a step forward next year. Dobson's going to help that. I know his defensive game isn't the best, but I mean, if you have a top 4 potentially next year of Mike Matheson, Noah Dobson, Kane Gooley, and Lane Hudson, and you have guys like Malieu, Xhekaj, and people like that coming back in the lineup in the very near future, that's going to be a very scary blue line for all of the Atlantic Division. And if the Canadiens make maybe 1 to 2 more moves, that could be a very, very, very scary team to face against next year. The Habs might be a top 3 team at this point in the Atlantic Division. So once again, is Dobson's AAV the best? I don't think so. I think he's more of an $8 to $9 million defenseman than a $9.5 million defenseman. So I don't think that's the greatest of moves by the Montreal Canadiens to sign him to $9.5 million. But is it a smart move there to add an NHL level talent for 2 first-round picks and a prospect who got his first in the NHL level this year? Abso-freaking-lutely. So that was a really great trade there for the Canadiens acquiring Dobson. The Islanders, it seems like at this point with Dobson, stuff like that, they're starting to tear it down. It seems like it. Like there was some talk earlier in the day from David Pagnotta that they were at least fielding offers on Matthew Barzal, though it doesn't sound like they were going to trade him. There's talk about Pajot being moved. There's probably a couple of other guys in their system. Like the Islanders, along with the Penguins, are probably the 2 teams in the Eastern Conference who are probably guaranteed at this point to finish dead last with the way they're going about this offseason. But they get 2 first-round picks. There's been some talk out there they could package the 16th and 17th overall picks and move them to one of the top 10 teams to try and get a top 10 pick, maybe go after James Hagens. So we'll have to wait and see on that. They get Emil Heineman. He played his first full career pro season at the NHL level, which was fantastic. Put up 62 games of NHL action, having I think it was 18 goal points. So that's not a bad deal in my opinion. So in my opinion, this is an interesting move. I think it's a win-win at this point. I'll mention that in my video. I think that the Islanders getting 2 first-round picks as well as Heineman, really stellar move there for the Islanders. And I think the Habs adding some more defensive players to that team, NHL proven players, is also a very solid move there, even though I think the contract's a bit too high. So very interesting note there, but the Habs and the Islanders make an interesting trade. And then another trade that I didn't mention in that previous video, I may try and make a video about that later today or maybe tomorrow morning after the draft, the second part of the draft, is between the Avalanche and the Jackets. Now this is an interesting one. It involved number I don't know exactly. I think it's 24 on my trade debate list. I might be a little bit wrong on that. But the Jackets and the Avalanche made a trade for Charlie Coyle. The trade was as follows. The Avalanche moved Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood to the Jackets in exchange for a 2027 second rounder, the 77th overall pick tomorrow, and Gavin Brindley. This is a very, very, very intriguing deal for both sides. For the Avalanche, Coyle, very fantastic player. He's a center. He can play third line center minutes. He can play second line center minutes. He's got $5.25 million cap hit for this upcoming season. Split last year between Boston and Colorado. The Avalanche needed cap space. They weren't going to get around that, so they needed to move Coyle at some point, or someone, to free up cap space, and it made sense that it was Coyle given the fact of their center depth at this point in time. So they moved Coyle. That's $5.25 million out of the books. It's only going to be a one-year deal, so a middle six forward with the Jackets having the amount of cap they do have, it's a smart move there for the Jackets. They also get Miles Wood. I think Wood had 3 more seasons left, or 4 more seasons left, at $2 million. That's a very intriguing move. Like, he's on a longer term deal, so to acquire him, very interesting guy. He's a speedy guy, good penalty killer, can play ball in 6 minutes, put you up a couple of points. So it's not the worst get in the world for the Blue Jackets, but it's a little bit surprising, at least in my opinion. So the Jackets do wind up getting both these guys. What I think is going to be a decent bomb 6 forward, Coyle a good middle 6 forward, so very interesting note there. And then we also saw the Avalanche. Like, they moved off, I think it was like around $7.5 million in cap space. So they get $7.5 million in cap space, which is great for them because they're right up against the cap. And then in return, they get 3 pieces. They get a second round pick in 2027, so that's a ways down the road. Jackets might be a really good playoff team at that point. So not sure exactly how that will factor in. They could also be trade fodder for the Avalanche. They also get the 77th overall pick in tomorrow's draft. So do they use that pick? That's a possibility. Do they trade that pick? That's also a possibility, so we'll have to wait and see on that, but it definitely does seem like that's going to happen. And then on top of that, you also have Brindley. Brindley was a second round pick, projected first round pick, I think 1 or 2 drafts ago. Projects to be a very, very solid top 9 forward, maybe even a top 6 forward. So to move off 2 players which are basically cap them for the Avalanche, and to get a former second round pick, another second round pick, and a third round pick in tomorrow's draft, that's a pretty good piece of business there for the Avalanche. If I had to pick a winner right now, I definitely say the Avalanche, because they freed up cap space and got a couple of really, really interesting pieces. But I definitely do think that if the Jackets, if Coyle can work out well, if Wood can turn into a really solid bomb 6 forward, that might be a win there for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So very interesting note there. But the Jackets do wind up getting Wood and Coyle, so very interesting note there. Gary Bettman's just mentioning things on the draft right now, so we still haven't even gone to the part where the Islanders are on the clock. So very interesting note there. We still got a little bit of ways to go here, but very, very intriguing stuff here as we await the first overall pick of the draft and then the snowball effect down there. Maybe this year's going to be different. I know the first time I did a live stream on draft day, there were no trades. It was a 2023 draft, I think it was, and there were absolutely no trades whatsoever. And then last year, there were a couple of trades and some movement in the draft, but there were no trades for players. Those all happened on day 2. So I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, maybe we do get some player trades on day 1. Like, it's possible, but in my 2 previous draft day live streams, it hasn't really been a whole bunch of stuff to announce. So fingers crossed, hoping that we're going to have some things to announce. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. What are your expectations for the draft? What are your guys' expectations? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you want to, leave a chat. If you don't want to, then leave a comment. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all that's going to be discussed here today, because it's going to be a very busy next 24, 48 hours and then leading on to the draft. Free agency. So very interesting note there, but we've got some very interesting stuff to do here. On top of that, I also want to talk about a couple of signings that happened earlier today. There were some very, very interesting signings. So very interesting stuff there. So on top of the 2 trades I mentioned that happened earlier today, there were, hold on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then as well the Dobson extension. So there were quite a few signings. I touched on a couple of these in my video that I'm editing that'll come out right after the draft video, but there were a couple that weren't mentioned, so I'll touch on those ones first. So Hunter McCowan, a guy who played over in college, he was a decent player, didn't really get a whole bunch of playing time last year, was mostly an AHL level guy. He gets a 1-year deal with the AAV of $800,000 to be a decent bottom end guy, so that's a pretty good pickup there for the Jackets to get McCowan. So, I mean, he was an RFA, I think he was, so they get another guy. He can play bottom 6 minutes, he can play in the AHL, so that's a pretty good pickup there for the Jackets. Brendan Saad is staying in Vegas. That surprised to me. I thought Saad would have tested free agency. I definitely thought he was on his way out of Vegas, but apparently not. He signs the exact same deal that Riley Smith signed that I mentioned in my last video, and that's 1 year at $2 million. So Vegas is able to keep some of their depth around. There's still a lot of speculation that they're going to go after Marner or Besser or someone in free agency, but it definitely seems that they're trying to keep some of their depth around. Saad can be a really solid top 9 forward, and with that in mind, that's a pretty good pickup here for the Vegas Golden Knights. So they're able to take Saad. Another signing was Jack Quinn, RFA in the Buffalo Sabres organization. We know the Sabres just traded JJ Peterka, so they wound up signing Jack Quinn. So good to see that they got at least one of those younger guys locked up. RFA Quinn gets a 2-year contract extension with the AV of $3.375 million. So Quinn, really good goal scorer. If he can keep healthy, which has been a problem for him over the past couple of years, I definitely think it could be a very interesting addition there for the Buffalo Sabres. So Jack Quinn gets 3.375 AAV, gets a 2-year contract. He's going to stay in Buffalo. I'm sure Sabres fans are at least happy about that. We got the official wording on Trent Frederick's contract. I mentioned this in that video, but Frederick is going to sign with the Edmonton Oilers. 8-year contract extension. The actual AAV is $3.85 million. That's a really big extension there for Frederick. So very interesting note there. I think Frederick can be a decent middle 6 forward. He's a really good hard-hitting type guy. If he can get back to those last couple of years in Boston, the contract sort of works. I still think somewhere closer to $3 million instead of somewhere closer to $4 million would have been better for Frederick and the Oilers. But still, it's a really solid deal there for Frederick. We saw John Tavares extend in Toronto. This was something that I think was a long time coming. A lot of people were expecting Tavares to sign, but there were some people who thought maybe he wouldn't and he would hit free agency. He gets a 4-year contract extension with an extremely team-friendly $4.38 million AAV. Given the fact there were some insiders out there who said he could get $6 to $8 million on the open market, he takes an extreme hometown discount to remain with his Toronto Maple Leafs, which is absolutely beautiful to see. So very interesting note there, but Tavares gets a steal of a deal and stays in the Toronto organization. Sam Bennett is also staying in the Florida Panthers organization. I didn't mention this in that last video that's going to come out after the draft, but the Florida Panthers take Sam Bennett and sign him to an 8-year contract extension with an AAV of $8 million. That's fantastic. It's a little bit more than Carter Verhaeghe. I think it's close to Sam Reinhart's contract that he signed last year, but one of the major UFAs in the Florida Panthers organization is staying in Florida, and Bennett gets an 8x8 contract. So very interesting note there. And then of course there was a Dobson one too. So very interesting note there. The draft has started. The Islanders are on the clock, so we shall wait and see what happens. They have a minute left to make their decision. I think they're probably going to go with Schaefer. That would be my guess. Puck moving defenseman. They just moved off Noah Dobson, so it'd make a whole bunch of sense if they wound up doing this. So we'll have to wait and see. The selection has been made, so we'll just wait for Gary Bettman to announce the pick. Give me a minute here. Who is that? And it's true. The New York Islanders have selected with the first overall draft pick in the 2023 draft, Matthew Schaefer. The young left shot defenseman is going to be joining the New York Islanders. Great pickup here for the New York Islanders. I don't think anyone was too surprised by this. I predicted it in yesterday's mock draft. The Islanders are really going to get a solid player here in Schaefer. Schaefer is a top 4, top pair left shot defenseman. Puck moving guy, could even be potentially better than some of the recent puck-moving offensive defensemen that have gone first overall over the past couple of years, such as a guy like Owen Power, even a guy who went top end like Simon Nemec. Like, Schaefer has the ability to be a very solid difference maker on that blue line. And even though I don't think the Islanders will be contending for the next year or two, this is a great pickup here for the New York Islanders. So very interesting note there. But Schaefer is the 5th defenseman selected, apparently, first overall since the 2000 NHL Draft. And we've had a couple in recent years. So very interesting note there. But Schaefer is first overall to New York Islanders. So I like this fit here. Like, they're going to have him with guys like Pelech, Pulak, Mayfield long term, and maybe they get a couple of other guys. But very, very intriguing deal here for the New York Islanders, as they do wind up taking Schaefer first overall. So that's a huge pickup here for the New York Islanders. The San Jose Sharks now on the clock. So this is where it gets interesting, because I know there's some Hawks fans out there who have been really heavily pushing for Frondell to go to San Jose, and they can be able to take Misa. I've seen some people say Misa could go there. I've seen some people say Frondell could go there. So it's really basically a battle between Misa and Frondell, in my opinion, for second overall. I picked Misa in my mock draft yesterday. I definitely think there's a very likely chance that Misa does wind up getting taken by San Jose second overall. So very interesting note there, but Schaefer is pick 1 in this year's draft. So very interesting note there. And I think the Islanders have a very, very bright future with Schaefer taken here. So very interesting note there. But we do have the Islanders taking Matthew Schaefer. So quite interesting here. We're 20 minutes into the live stream. As I mentioned before, I'm going to be with you guys here until probably the end of the draft. We might end it a little bit early with about 5 picks left, depending on how long it takes. But the Islanders have taken Schaefer, and now we wait for San Jose. So very interesting note there. Just a couple of quick hits here when it comes to things that happened earlier today. Noah Dobson was traded to the Montreal Canadiens for 2 first-round picks in this draft, and Emil Heineman, the Jackets acquired Charlie Coyle, as well as Miles Wood from the Colorado Avalanche for a 3rd-round pick in tomorrow's draft, a 2nd-round pick in 2027, and Gavin Brindley. And then on top of that, we've seen a couple of major signings, including Brendan Saad in Vegas, the Frederick deal being official in Edmonton, Tavares taking a hometown discount to stay in Toronto, and Bennett taking an 8x8 deal to stay in Florida. So very, very, very interesting note there. Very interesting note there. Just looking at Schaefer right now, who is in the building to get drafted. So very interesting note there. But the Islanders take Schaefer first overall. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. The Islanders in general are going to be very interesting to watch in this draft. They have the first overall pick, but now because of the Dobson deal, they have the 16th and 17th overall pick as well. So it's going to be very interesting to keep tabs on what happens with the New York Islanders. There's a possibility here that could be very, very intriguing, that they could make another trade or try and trade up and get Hagens. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Next pick on the clock will be the San Jose Sharks. We'll see if they keep that pick, if they move that pick. Love to hear guys' thoughts down in the chat, down in the comments. What's your opinion on the draft so far, draft day so far, all the movements that have come out? I'd love to hear guys' thoughts, love to chat with you guys. But Schaefer's taken first overall from the Islanders. So very interesting note there. We'll have to wait and see what happens next. There's like a ton of teams out there right now who could make a lot of very intriguing moves. So very interesting note there. We're still waiting on what happens with the San Jose Sharks. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Some rumors that we've been hearing from our past little while. I just want to mention some of these things here. Going to the St. Louis Blues. There's been some talk they could move Jordan Kyrou. There's been some talk that the Islanders could move Matthew Barzal. There's been some talk about the San Jose Sharks having the 2nd overall pick on the block. There's been some other very intriguing things here when it comes to what could wind up happening. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens here. But keep an eye on some of these very intriguing names. So very intriguing stuff there. I'm not sure who else, what's the next thing that's going to happen. Byram, there's some talk about Byram's interest picking up. So very interesting stuff there. So Byram could get moved today. Kyrou could get moved today. Barzal could get moved today. The 15th overall pick from Vancouver's reportedly on the block. 14 and 20 is reportedly on the block for Columbus. At least one of Nashville's picks, one of Philadelphia's picks on the block, one of Pittsburgh's picks on the block. Wouldn't be surprised if one of Calgary's picks are on the block. So it'll be very, very, very intriguing to note there. But lots of intriguing stuff so far on draft day. Dobson's in Montreal now. Coyle and Wood are in Columbus. Very, very intriguing stuff here. So the Sharks are now officially on the clock, so we'll wait and see who the Sharks take second overall. Very intriguing stuff there. This is going to be a very intriguing next couple of days because we do have quite a bit of things and quite a bit of movement that could happen. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. If you're down looking in the chat below, where do you think Mitch Marner goes? We got our draft, our free agent video coming out on Tuesday. Marner's going to be the top of the list. He might not sign on July 1st during the live stream, but where do you think Marner will go? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat. Where do you think all the top UFAs will go? Where do you think Besser will go? Where do you think Marner will go? Ehlers, some of these top end guys, like does Marchand stay in Florida? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. What is your opinion on all of these sorts of trades? So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts if you can down in the chat below. Love to hear your guys' opinions. Like I said, lots of very, very intriguing stuff. Schaefer was just taken first overall by the New York Islanders. On top of that, the San Jose Sharks on the clock. They got the second overall pick. So we shall wait and see what happens with them. But very, very interesting draft so far. Like we said, Dobson's a Montreal Canadiens thanks to a trade that happened earlier today. Coyle has found his way to the Colorado Avalanche, to the Columbus Blue Jackets, thanks to a trade that happened earlier today. Very interesting note there. The Sharks have 2 minutes left on the draft clock, and then they will be needing to select someone, so we'll wait and see what happens with them. I think after the Hawks pick, because I do think the Sharks and the Hawks will keep second and third. After the Sharks and the Hawks pick, I think any other team could wind up making a trade. So very interesting note there, but they are going to be picking second overall for the San Jose Sharks. This is very interesting. So they took Celebrini last year. They've been a really solid top 4 team, like bottom 4 team in the NHL for years. They have a really solid thing going for them, but I definitely think that this team needs to try and make some sort of big piece. I think it's going to be Misa. I'm just going to put it out there. I personally think Misa is going to go to San Jose here. I predicted in my mock draft. I do think second overall is going to be Misa going to San Jose. We shall wait and see, but the second overall pick's on the clock right now, so we'll have to wait and see what happens here. Well, this is only the first of 32 picks, so we still got a couple more very intriguing picks here. So very, very intriguing stuff here so far. Love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the chat. All of the stuff that you guys are hearing right now. Are you surprised Dobson was moved? Are you surprised some of these other players were moved? Very, very intriguing stuff here. We could be getting some more trades. So very interesting out there. Still waiting on what happens with the San Jose Sharks. They're still on the clock. So remember, the pick is in. Okay, so the pick is now in. They've had their time. So the San Jose Sharks, their pick is just about to be announced. So will it be Misa or will it be Frondell? Or will it be one of those other guys? We're getting the announcement here who San Jose is going to go for second overall. Could be a franchise-changing player for the San Jose Sharks team. Let's see who it is. Hold on. Who is it? They're just going to go over to their announcements and announce the pick. So very interesting note there. Almost time here for the San Jose Sharks to pick. So let's see who they do end up picking. Ah, crap. Give me a second, guys. Just got to fix that. Okay. I am back. So the San Jose Sharks are just making their announcements. It might be Misa, might be Frondell. It's getting announced right now. And the San Jose Sharks, with the second overall selection in the 2025 NHL Entry Draft, are going to be selecting, I think it's Misa. I think the San Jose Sharks have gone Misa in this draft. Like I was expecting in the mock draft I made yesterday. Hold on. I think that's Misa. So it looks like the San Jose Sharks are going to take Michael Misa, 2nd overall. I'm sure a lot of Hawks fans are screaming right now because I know a lot of Hawks fans really wanted this kid. But Misa, he's going to be a really great ad for the San Jose Sharks. They showed this year they have Celebrini, they have Smith. They have the makings of such a good young core on that team. You add Misa to that, that's insane. They could use Misa as their second line center behind Celebrini long term. That would be a fantastic ad. But Misa is a guy who's very versatile. He can play on the left wing as well. So you already have Will Smith, who's a true center. You have Michael and Celebrini, who's a true center. They can go Misa, 2nd overall. They can place him in the top 6. They can have Misa maybe play on the left wing with either Smith or Celebrini. Like, you have Misa, Smith, and Celebrini as 3 of your top 6. This core is going to get to the playoffs, and not only get to the playoffs, but this core is going to create havoc in the playoffs. So this team can wind up figuring out the defense, working on that defense, figuring out exactly how to do things. This is going to be one scary heck of a team to face in 2 to 3 years' time. Like, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year. As much as they want to improve and get better, even with the Misa addition, like, they're not going to be able to make the playoffs this year. But I do feel like this team is going to have a fantastic opportunity to make the playoffs in 2 to 3 years' time. Adding Misa to a top 6 that already has Celebrini, that already has Smith, like, that's just an insane amount of riches for the San Jose Sharks. And they have some pretty good prospects who might eventually work into being top 6 forwards. So what I'm very interested in seeing is if Misa goes back to juniors this year, or if he winds up staying in the NHL and signing his ELC. Like, that's going to be very interesting out there, because if Misa signs this year and the Sharks have Misa, Celebrini, and Smith all playing this year in the top 6, like, I could see Misa be one of the candidates to be Rookie of the Year. And even if he doesn't make it this year, if he makes it next year, he could very well be one of the Rookie of the Year candidates for next season. So very interesting out there. But Misa has been taken, pick number 2 by the San Jose Sharks. And what a great ad that is for the San Jose Sharks. So you have Misa here talking to the Sharks front office, talking to TSN, Sportsnet, things like that. So we shall wait for the 3rd overall pick, which will be happening in just a couple of minutes here. Once again, going to be lots of very intriguing things happening today. So next is going to be Chicago. Now, for the longest time, I thought if one of the top 4 wasn't going to be drafted, whether that be Hagens or whether that, I thought if Misa, and I thought if Schaefer did go in the top 2 like everyone was expecting, I thought that Hawks would have gone for one of Hagens or Martin. But after some of the recent mock drafts, recent things that have been coming up from our past little while, it sort of sounds like the Chicago Blackhawks will go after Frondell. So that could be a very interesting pickup here for the Blackhawks if they go after Frondell. Like I said, I think he goes 3rd overall to the Blackhawks. I think that would be a really solid ad. If you could have a bigger frame center like Frondell behind Connor Bedard, or if you have him as your first line center and move Bedard to the wing, that could be a very interesting pickup here for the Blackhawks. So we've got very intriguing things here to talk about, but lots of very intriguing stuff here from these Chicago Blackhawks. So Misa goes 2nd overall to the San Jose Sharks. That's something that's happened already. So very interesting note there. We shall see who ends up going next in the draft, but Misa is now in San Jose. So that's a very interesting pickup here from the San Jose Sharks. We shall see who goes next. So we got the first 2 off the board. The first 2 up here, I think it is. You have Schaefer going 1 overall to NYI, and you have Misa going 2 overall to San Jose. So very interesting note there. Like, Misa is going to be such a gosh dang monster in that San Jose Sharks organization. Very, very, very intriguing stuff there. So Misa, Schaefer, they've already been taken. So now we go over to 3rd overall. So we've got to wait a couple minutes here. Just want to quickly touch on some things that happened earlier today. So number 7 on the end-to-end hockey trade bait list. If you haven't already, check it out. It's a very interesting list. It's got 43 players on it. So some of them have already been traded, but there's still a lot on that list that have not been traded. So Noah Dobson, who was 7th on my list, was traded to the New York Islanders by the New York Islanders earlier today to the Montreal Canadiens. So that was a very intriguing deal. The Islanders got 2 first-round picks, 16, 17 overall, as well as Emil Heineman. So that was a very intriguing deal. On top of that, you had Charlie Coyle, Miles Wood being dealt by the Avalanche to the Jackets. Coyle, I think, was number 24 on my end-to-end hockey trade bait list, so he got dealt. So lots of very intriguing players getting dealt. So far, I think from my last end-to-end hockey trade bait board, I think Kane, who was 19th, has been dealt. Peterka, who was 6th, has been dealt. Dobson, who was 7th, has been dealt. Coyle, who was 24th, has been dealt. And there might have been one more in there who ends up being dealt. But there's still, I think all of the top 5 on my trade bait list are still there. Like, I know Rasmus Anderson was number 5. I'm pretty sure Keandre Miller was number 4. I think it was Rossi who was number 3. Robertson was 2. And Byram was 1. So yeah, all of the 5 in my end-to-end hockey trade bait list are still on the board and could still wind up getting dealt. So once again, love to hear your guys' thoughts down the end-to-end hockey live stream chat down below. What's your opinion? Are you surprised Schaefer's gone 1st overall? Are you surprised Misa went 2nd overall? Who do you think the Hawks go 3rd overall? On top of that, love to hear your guys' thoughts. Leave a like down below. Leave a comment down below. Once again, sorry for the buffering in this video because of my Wi-Fi, but we're going to get through it. Hopefully my stream doesn't cut. Once again, don't have the best of Wi-Fi. But thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting my channel. Thank you for getting me to 500 subscribers. Like, I really appreciate that. The Hawks are about to make their 3rd overall pick selection, so it's probably going to be another couple minutes. But the Hawks will be taking 3rd overall. So very interesting note there. Apparently the Hawks have multiple 1st-round selections for the 4th consecutive year, because they, if you can see on my board, have the 3rd overall pick, but also thanks to Toronto Maple Leafs, I think it was the Jake McCabe deal, they have the 25th overall pick. So they do have a couple of very intriguing picks here to come up here, so they're going to pick later on in the draft too, but this is going to be a very interesting piece. I mean, last year they were, oh crap, who did they got 2nd overall, that's right. They had 2nd overall and they took Levshunov. This past year, in 2023, they took Bedard. So they took Bedard 1st overall in 2023, Levshunov 2nd overall in 2024. So we'll see who they take 3rd overall 2025. Bettman's just up there announcing who's going to be announcing the pick. So very interesting note there. There are some Hawks fans in the draft. The draft is being held over in Los Angeles. It is a very decentralized draft, so it's very, very interesting because none of the GMs are there. So all that energy that you've usually seen over the past little while, it's not there. It sounds like they will be going back to the regular draft next year. So very interesting note there. But it does sound like the Blackhawks are on the clock now, and we shall see who they wind up selecting. They're just getting ready to announce it. I'm expecting Frondell. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on who you think goes 3rd overall to Chicago. I'm thinking Frondell. I think it's a very lucky chance with how much he's skyrocketed in the draft over the past little while and all those rankings. So we'll have to wait and see on that. So hold on. The selection is being made as it sits right now. So we shall see who the Blackhawks take 3rd overall. And then 4th overall is Utah. That's a pick that I'm going to be very interested in seeing if it does wind up staying in Utah or if it winds up getting dealt, because I definitely do think Utah could wind up making a big splash by moving the 4th overall pick. Now, of course, after the Peterka trade, they may not want to try and do something, but it's going to be very... The Hawks have selected, it seems like, yes, the Hawks did indeed select Anton Frondell. So Frondell goes from probably being a top 10 draft at probably the beginning of the season, skyrockets, and the Hawks have the center prospect in Frondell. That's a really, really good pickup here for the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, Frondell's a bigger type player. He's, I think, 6'2" or 6'3" or something like that. He's a bigger type player. He's going to be a monumental add there for the Blackhawks. He's a puck mover, had a pretty good season I think last year in the SHL or Allsvenskan. Like, he had a really solid season last year overseas. Frondell is going to be a monumental add here for the Blackhawks at 3rd overall. He wound up having 5 goals, 2 assists, 10 points with Sturgeon's junior team. So very interesting note there. So the junior team over in the SHL. Like I said, Frondell is going to be a massive add for the Blackhawks. Like, you have Bedard as your top line center, you can put Frondell as your second line center, and have an extraordinarily great 1-2 punch down the middle of Bedard and Frondell. Or they could transition Bedard to the wing, like they have a couple of times with Connor McDavid in Edmonton, but Bedard could do it in Chicago. He can be as a winger, and you can have Frondell as your top line center. Like, that's another possibility. So Frondell is taken 3rd overall by Blackhawks. So the top 3 are exactly as predicted in yesterday's mock draft. So first overall was Matthew Schaefer, the top pair left shot defenseman, puck moving guy, goes first overall to the Islanders, who win the draft lottery back over in May. Then second overall goes to second overall pick is Michael Misa, going to the San Jose Sharks. Another fantastic ad by the San Jose Sharks, as they got Misa. Third overall, Anton Frondell to the Chicago Blackhawks. Could not have written it better. Very fantastic ad there for Chicago. So very interesting note there. But the Blackhawks have taken Anton Frondell 3rd overall. So we're 3 picks in. We have 29 picks to go. So we still have quite a bit of time before the end of this live stream. Probably going to be at least 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer. We shall see. Hopefully the stream doesn't cut out. But still, very interesting note there. Frondell is going 3rd overall to the Blackhawks. And now we await what's going to happen with Utah. Do they trade the 4th overall pick? Do they select a guy like Martin or Martin or Hagens? What do the Utah Mammoth do with the pick that they have at this point in time? So very interesting note there. But the Hawks take Frondell 3rd overall. So that's really good. So what do you guys think will happen today? Do we see a player swap or trade here? Could Cairo be moved? He was mentioned by a couple of insiders, including Freeman and Saravalli, that he could wind up being had for the right price. Does Byram get moved? There's a lot of talk recently that Byram trade was getting close. Do the Wild move Marco Rossi? Are the Stars considering a Jason Robertson deal? Does Rasmus Anderson get moved at some point? Definitely. So, the Jackets have 2 first-round picks. They're a team I'm watching here. The 14th overall pick, the 20th overall pick, they do not need both of them. They barely missed out on the playoffs last year. They're a team who I could very well see move a pick. The Pittsburgh Penguins have 2 picks. The Islanders have 2 more picks. Those are 2 teams that I could see maybe package those 2 picks up and maybe try and trade back into the top end of the draft. That's another possibility. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. But keep your eye on the Islanders, in my opinion, the Jackets, the Penguins. Those 3 teams I think are very likely to make some sort of a draft pick move. I also think Kyra's available. I think Byram's available. Rossi could be available for the right pick. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But keep your eye on all of these teams. Could very well wind up happening. That there's some very interesting pieces here. So we shall wait and see what happens there. Let's see. It's going to commercials. So we don't know what's going to happen with Utah. Very likely chance they could wind up using that pick. I said if they did keep that pick in yesterday's mock draft, they go after Martin. So I think Martin will be the guy here for Utah. Really solid top 6 power forward type player who could really blend well into that young group that Utah has. There's a couple of other pieces here that could wind up being moved. So we shall wait and see. But very interesting note there. No trades since the draft started. We saw a couple earlier today, but this is going to be a very interesting note there. Just looking at a couple of things here. The Sharks U23 core is Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, William Eklund, Michael Misa, Yaroslav Askarov, Sam Dickinson, and they have the 30th overall pick and a couple of lower end draft prospects. The Sharks are building something special. They are one of, I think, 10 teams who does not have a Stanley Cup to their name. I could definitely see a change in maybe like 3 to 5 years. I definitely think that the San Jose Sharks could be a behemoth of a team. Like Montreal, just a little bit behind them. I think this Sharks team maybe, and I'm saying maybe, could surprise of a playoff appearance not next year but the year after. I think they're probably 2 to 3 years behind the Montreal Canadiens' projected trajectory. But the Sharks, they have 4 really solid top 6 forwards in Eklund, Celebrini, Smith, and Misa. You add 2 veterans like they already have to Foley, add 1 more top 6 veteran for a couple more years' time, and that top 6 is amongst some of the best top 6s in the entire NHL. You gotta give it to them. They're building something special. Sam Dickinson's going to be a top pair defenseman. They have a couple of younger pieces on that blue line who could wind up being top pair defensemen. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But the San Jose Sharks, like, they are building something great in San Jose, and I think for a couple of years, like, they're not going to make the playoffs next year. They're not going to make the playoffs in 2027, I don't think. But in a couple of years' time, the San Jose Sharks are going to be a scary team to face in the postseason and a potential cup contender. So, very interesting note there. But the Hawks do take Frondell. The Sharks take Misa. And, I mean, that's going to be a very fantastic pick. So now Utah is on the clock. We shall see if they keep the pick or if they move it. If they move it, it has to be for something. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. Interesting to see what Utah is going to do. They're on the clock. They have a few seconds to try and make something happen. So very interesting note there. Like, I think if they do keep this pick, it goes to Martin. Like, I think they have to go for Martin here. They have 10 seconds left to make their selection. We shall see if they do wind up picking here or if they do wind up making some sort of a trade. So we shall see. I mean, there's been a whole bunch of selections. It says the pick is in. So it does look like Utah's going to keep the 4th overall pick. Not too surprised there. Like, Utah, they just traded for Peterka and didn't need to take the 4th overall pick. So I don't think that's too much of a surprise that they probably are keeping the 4th overall pick. The pick is in. We shall see who they wind up taking at 4th overall. So they're going to take, Bettman's going to announce who's coming up there to announce the pick. Very intriguing stuff there. So we shall see who the Utah Mammoth, who they got their logo this offseason, they got their other things this offseason, they got a lot of things this past offseason. Now they got Peterka just a couple days ago for Doan and Kessler, which I think was a great move. And now they're going to be taking someone 4th overall. I think it's Martin. We shall see who ends up getting taken 4th overall. I'm pretty sure it's Martin. I think it would be Martin. I think a elite level power forward winger is something that this Utah team desperately needs. So I definitely do think that Martin's going to be the pick here. We shall see if that winds up happening. Leave a chat down below. Love to hear your guys' opinion on the draft so far, and love to hear your guys' thoughts on all the things that have happened. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. Let's see. Utah Mammoth are taking. Hold on. Who are the Utah Mammoth taking here? No updates yet, but it's coming. They did not trade the pick. Mammoths are picking, and it seems like they're going to be picking, I don't know. Utah selects. Wow! I thought it was going in the top 10. I didn't think it was going in the top 5. The Utah Mammoths select Caleb Desnoyers, 4th overall. Utah's taken Desnoyers. That's surprising. I thought they would have for sure gone for Martin. Desnoyers is going to be a really good pickup here for the Mammoth. He's a top 6. He's a top line center. Now they've got Cooley. Cooley's a top line center too, so Desnoyers might be the 2nd line center in that team going forward. But this is a fantastic pickup. He got 9 goals, 21 assists, and 19 playoff games with Munton over in the QMJHL. He's going to be a very fantastic top 6 center for the Utah Mammoth, and they just acquired Peterka. So going forward, the Utah Mammoth, once Desnoyers comes into the NHL, which will probably be a year, but once he comes into the NHL, you have a top 6 in the Utah Mammoth organization of Cooley, Gunther, Keller, Peterka, Desnoyers, and someone else, maybe a guy like Daniel Boot, or they go out and get a veteran. This is the makings of a stellar team. Like, I feel so bad for Arizona fans right now that could have had this team if they had competent ownership in an actual NHL arena. But Arizona moves to Utah, and Utah's about to become a very fantastic playoff team. Like, I think after the Peterka deal, we'll have to wait and see what they do going forward, like what they do tomorrow, what they do in the future. But I think this Utah team is going to be such a lethal force to be working with in the Central Division for years to come. Like, I could definitely see them be a playoff team next year, maybe even win a round or two. If they keep on making smart decisions, I think this team could even be a cup contender in the next year or two. So very interesting note there. But the Mammoth, the newly named Utah Mammoth, have taken Caleb Desnoyers 4th overall. So the top 4, not exactly how I thought it was going to be. So my predictions and my mock draft video I did just yesterday, I think it was, I had 1st overall being Schaefer, that was correct. 2nd overall being Misa, that was correct. 3rd overall Frondell, that was correct. And 4th overall I had Martin, that was wrong. They went Desnoyers. So Fifth overall, you have the Nashville Predators. Now with where everything sits, let's look at some of the top prospects the Nashville Predators could go after. Now, I originally, in my last mock draft yesterday, predicted NYI to go to Nashville. So now he's off the board. We shall see where they go. There's Brady Martin, who I predicted going 6th to Philadelphia. I could definitely see the Predators trying to take a chance on him. There is Porter Martone, who I projected going to Utah, is still on the board now. I could see the Nashville Predators go after him. You have Hagens, who was supposed to be at one point a top pick in this draft. He's now fallen out of the top 4. I could definitely see Nashville go after him. Some of the other top prospects that I had were Murtka. If they really wanted to add another defenseman, the best defenseman in my opinion on the draft is Radim Murtka. I definitely think that's a possibility. On top of Murtka, you have Smith in Buffalo. I projected him to go to Buffalo in my mock draft. That could be another interesting one. Then you've also got O'Brien. You've got Eklund. There's a couple of really solid prospects here out there for the Preds. So I predicted them to go center. So if they did go center, I'd expect Martin or Hagens to be the two guys who they try and target. Anything else, it'll be very interesting to note there if they do wind up making something. Utah taking NYI, though. I was not expecting Utah to take NYI. I thought NYI would go in the top 5, maybe to a guy like Nashville, but very, very interesting there that NYI goes to the Utah Mammoth. So very interesting note there. Now hold on a minute here. We shall see if anything has been updated. Yeah, I agree with some of the people on Twitter here. It's taking quite a bit to go after. Like, tomorrow's going to go quick. Like, it's going to go pick. Like, you're going to get out of the 2nd or 3rd round. Just to recap that tomorrow, I am just covering the 2nd to 4th round. So after the 4th round's done tomorrow, I will probably be done in my live stream, just do a couple of videos afterwards, just recapping what happened on draft day and the second day of the draft. So very interesting note there, but this is going to be a very, very intriguing next couple of days as the draft continues to go on. Like, NYI is going to be a very solid pickup here for the Utah Mammoth. And like I said, long term, that Utah top 6 is almost as scary as the San Jose Sharks top 6. Like, I think Utah and San Jose are maybe one piece away from one forward away from getting maybe the most scariest top 6s in the Western Conference. And that's saying something, given the fact you got McDavid in Edmonton, you got Eichel in Vegas, you've got Kopitar in LA, you've got McKinnon in Colorado, you've got Hintz and Rantanen in Dallas. Like, there's a lot of really solid top 6s in the NHL in the Western Conference. And I think Utah and San Jose are on the verge of having maybe 2 of the best 4 or 5 in the NHL, in the Western Conference, in the top 6s. So very, very interesting note there, but a very interesting pick here. They're just talking to NYI. Nashville is on the clock now. They have 2 minutes to make their selection. So I'm thinking Martone here because he fell out of the top 4. I'm thinking Hagens because he fell out of the top 4. I could see him go after Martin if they wanted a top end center. I could see him go after, there's a couple other guys out there. Murtka, Smith if they wanted a defenseman. So we'll have to wait and see what the Nashville Predators go for here. They have 3 picks. If you guys can see, they do have the 5th overall selection in this year's draft. But thanks to Tampa via the Jeannot deal, and thanks to Vegas and San Jose via the Askarov deal, they do also have the 23rd overall pick and the 26th overall pick. So they'll be picking twice later on in the day. So we will have to wait and see what happens then. But they are picking 5th overall here. We shall see what happens. Like, I highly doubt Nashville trades the 5th overall pick. Like, I really do doubt that. I think it's a very likely chance that they may do some other things. But I definitely do not expect the San Jose Sharks to be, the Nashville Predators to be trading away the 5th overall pick. I definitely think they will select someone, and whether that be Martone if they need a winger, whether that be Martin or Hagens if they need a center, or whether that be Smith or Murtka if they need a defenseman, I think it's probably one of those 5. I mean, last year we saw Seneca taken 3rd overall, which was a hit out of left park. So we'll have to wait and see on that. There's still 30 seconds on the clock. We shall see who Nashville winds up selecting. Like I said, I don't think they will wind up doing anything here. So we'll have to wait and see. On top of that, love to hear your thoughts in the chats. Are you surprised by anything that's happened so far? Are you really intrigued by anything that's happened so far? So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and what you guys are doing at this point in time. Are you watching the draft? Are you just watching my live stream? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think so far. What did you like about the moves that happened today? Are you liking the Dobson to Montreal deal for both sides? Are you liking Coyle going to Columbus and not giving up a first round pick? Like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on those two deals that happened earlier today. Plus the Tavares signing, the Bennett signing, the Saad signing, the who else was it? There was Bennett, there was Tavares, there was Saad Frederick deal being announced. Nashville's pick is in, so they aren't trading. They aren't trading it. They are going to be picking it. Shea Weber's going to be announcing it. So we've had a couple of interesting people be announcing the earlier picks. So we'll have to wait and see who Nashville selects here at 5th overall. Like I said, I think it's Martin here. I think he's fallen enough. I could see Hagens. I could see Martin. I could definitely see. I could see Hagens, I could see Martin, I could see one of the defensemen, Murka, Smith. Like, there's a couple of people here who I could definitely see wind up being taken. So we saw a little bit of a surprise to me, at least, NYI be taken 4th overall to Utah. So we shall see who Nashville takes 5th overall. Hold on. Nashville. Wow. So I was right for the 4th and 5th overall selections, but they're a pick higher. Brady Martin's 5th overall to the Nashville Predators. That's an impressive pick here for the Nashville Predators. They do wind up going center, which is something I think the Nashville Predators really needed to go for, which is why I did have them in my mock draft going Desnoyers, but now Desnoyers is off the board. So they go after Brady Martin. That's an incredible pickup here for the Nashville Predators. Now, Martin, during my first few mock drafts, was projected to be, I was at least projected to be in like the 20 to 15 range, somewhere around there, probably like a top-end level talent, but maybe someone who falls out of the top 15. But over the past couple of weeks, Martin Stark has rised a lot. There were some people who said that Utah could potentially even take him at 4th. So I did raise him a little bit in my mock draft. I had him going 6th to Philadelphia. But obviously with NYI now off the board, needing some center help, Martin is going 5th overall to the Nashville Predators. So very interesting note there. So at this point in time, top 5 picks of the 2025 NHL Entry Draft. 1st overall, we have the New York Islanders selecting Matthew Schaefer, top pair, left shot defenseman, puck moving guy. 2nd overall, you have Michael Misa, the solid top 6 winger or center, who's going to be a fantastic fit with the San Jose Sharks core. You have 3rd overall going Anton Frondell to the Chicago Blackhawks, a solid, bigger type frame, puck moving center who's going to be either a solid 1-2 punch down the middle with Bedard or push Bedard to the wing and be your top line thinner. 4th overall, Utah takes Desnoyers. Desnoyers, I think, is going to be a very fantastic 2nd line center long term behind a guy like Logan Cooley. 1-2 punch down the middle of Desnoyers and Cooley is going to be scary to face against. And I think that's going to be a really good pickup here for Utah. And 5th overall in the Nashville Predators, and they take Brady Martin, who's going to be a very fantastic top 6 center long term. This team doesn't have a whole bunch of really solid centers either, so I could even see Martin at some point be a top line center for the Nashville Predators. So very interesting note there. But Martin goes to Nashville at 5th. Utah gets Desnoyers at 4th. Chicago takes Frondell at 3rd. Misa goes to San Jose at 2nd. And Schaefer's 1st overall to NYI. Very, very intriguing draft so far, and we're only 5 picks in. We're almost an hour into this live stream, and we still have 27 picks to go. Like I said, if it goes over 2.5 hours, I might stop with like 5-ish picks left and just announce who was on it picking a little bit earlier in my tomorrow's mock draft, tomorrow's live lottery, in tomorrow's live draft simulation. So like I said, tomorrow we're doing another live stream at like, I don't know, I think it's like 10 a.m. Mountain Time. That's when the draft starts for tomorrow. That'll be rounds 2 through 7. I'll be with you guys tomorrow from rounds 2 through 4. And if it goes a little bit later than I was expecting, I might start the live stream a tiny bit earlier and just go over the last few picks I missed for today. So very interesting note there, but a very, very intriguing pick here. So the Philadelphia Flyers are now on the clock. We're out of commercial break on Sportsnet. They're just recapping some of Martin's highlights. So very interesting note there, but Martin was taken 5th overall. So 6th overall, they got the Philadelphia Flyers. Now they, just like the Nashville Predators, have 3 draft picks this year in the first round. They have the 6th overall pick, as you can see here, but because of the, I think it was Sean Walker deal, and because of a first round pick swap from last year at the draft, they also have the 22nd and 31st overall picks. So they could do a lot of things here. I could see the Philadelphia Flyers maybe move one of those picks, maybe move down the draft. We shall see. The pick is in, so they aren't moving the 6th overall pick. Wasn't expecting that. Okay, predictions here. So I originally had them yesterday in my mock draft going 6th overall and taking Martin. Martin's off the board, Desnoyers is off the board. Desnoyers was a guy who I was expecting them to take earlier in my mock drafts. So it'll be interesting to see who the Philadelphia Flyers take at 6th overall. Now, at this point in time, you've got Martin. I think Martin would be a fantastic fit if the Philadelphia Flyers are okay with going for a winger. If they really want a center, Hagens is probably the best fit there. If they wanted to try and bolster their defensive core, I could see them try and take Murka or Smith. We know that the Flyers don't have a lot of size on their blue line, so a guy like Murka might actually be a very fantastic add there for the Philadelphia Flyers. So we shall wait and see. They're announcing the pick. They're going through it. Yeah, these are taking quite a while, so it's going to be very interesting to know there. Like I said, tomorrow it'll be going quick, pick after pick after pick after pick, so it'll be a lot faster, smoother tomorrow. There'll be probably a lot more trades tomorrow too, but it'll be definitely interesting to see who Philly goes here at 6th overall. So you gotta think, I gotta think it's gotta be Martin here, because even though I do think they could use a center, I think Martin's the best player available. I could see him go after Hagens because of how good of a prospect he's been. I also wouldn't count out Murka, given the fact that he needs some more size on the blue line. So we shall see what happens here. We've hit an hour mark on our stream. Thank you all so much for all of the support you guys have been able to give me. Thank you so much. So we've got a lot of interesting things here going. The Philadelphia Flyers are on the clock. They're making their pick. The Philadelphia Flyers at 6th overall. Yep, I called it. Best player available at this point. You can't pass up on top 6 power forward winger potential. The Philadelphia Flyers are selecting Porter Martin at 6th overall. Very solid pick here for Philadelphia Flyers. Like I said, longest time I thought they would go NYI. Last mock draft I had them going Martin. Both guys go off the board a little bit earlier than expected. So instead of going with maybe a position of need, whether it be a center or a bigger type defenseman, they go after Porter Martin. Now Martin is a solid top 6 winger in the, I think he was playing over in the OHL, that's right. He had 98 points in 57 games. He's, I think, 6'2". He has a bigger frame to him. He's going to be a menace to play against. You already have Zegras, you have Michkov, you have Tippett, you have some good young foundational pieces in Philadelphia. Martin's going to make that top 6 a lethal one in Philadelphia. So very interesting note there. The Flyers have very intriguing pickup here in taking Porter Martin at 6th overall. So a little bit of a shakeup here, but the top 6 picks I had in yesterday's mock draft are off the board in the first 6 selections. I just had the last 3 being a little bit off. So first, second, third was exactly how I predicted. First goes Schaefer to NYI. Second goes Misa to San Jose. Third, Chicago takes Frondell. Very interesting stuff there. And then 4th overall instead of Martin, Utah goes NYI. 5th overall instead of going NYI because he's off the board, Nashville takes Martin. And at 6th overall with now Martin and NYI off the board, the Philadelphia Flyers select Martin. So very interesting note there. I think this is going to be a very good pickup here long term. You have a power forward guy and a guy like Martin playing with a guy like Michkov, who's a more skilled, smaller type forward. I think that could be a very solid makings of a top line. Maybe have Zegras as your top line center. Like the making of the Flyers team, I don't think they're a playoff team yet. Unless they make some very interesting moves this offseason, I probably would not put them in my playoff making bracket right now. But I definitely think in a couple of years' time, this is going to be a scary team to face. Like I said, I don't think they have the futures at this point in time that teams like Seattle, San Jose, Utah, and some of those other top-end rebuilding teams do. But I definitely think this is the makings of a really good team. And I think Martin was the selection here for Philadelphia. So now at 7th overall, we could see Hagens, like I predicted in my mock draft, go to Boston. I think it's a very likely possibility here. If they're not going Hagens, Roger McQueen's another guy that comes to mind. He's a center prospect. Had some injury troubles this year, which is why it sounds like he's going to be falling down the draft a little bit. But I could see him go after him. Jake O'Brien's another top-end center prospect, who I think could be a very intriguing pickup here for the Boston Bruins. Victor Eklund's sort of a winger guy, could wind up seeing him being taken. You also have Jackson Smith, Rand Merka, probably the two best defensemen left on the trade board. So that'll be a very interesting pickup here. So we shall see what happens here. They're still announcing the Martone pick, things like that. He's going to talk to the front office of the Philadelphia Flyers. So very interesting note there. But Martone is going to the Philadelphia Flyers. We shall see some other things that have happened. Just looking on Twitter here to see if there's any sort of very intriguing news. So let's see what else happens here. No trade, it seems like, as of yet. I do wonder what else happens. With Hagens falling this much, he was at one point a top 2 draft selection, probably with a guy like Michael Misa. But Hagens fell over the past little while, and Schaefer rose. That's why Schaefer was first overall. But I don't know where Hagens is going to fall. Like, he's a top line center. I personally think he's sort of a guy like Jack Hughes. So I don't know what they're going to do. I definitely think there's a very likely chance that Hagens could fall even lower. Like, I had him drop in the 7th in my mock draft, which is right where we are right now, which is where Boston is picking. If he falls to 8th, I think Seattle passes on him because I think their big need is a defenseman. If he goes to 9th, would Buffalo have some interest? If he falls to 10th, I definitely think Anaheim would take a chance on him. If some reason they didn't, at 11th and 12th, Pittsburgh has the opportunity to basically not make a pick that might be a little bit more out there. I could definitely see him go after Hagens. I don't know where he goes. You got Boston, you got Seattle, Buffalo, Anaheim, Pittsburgh. If he falls past Pittsburgh's 12th overall pick right now, I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe falls 1 to 2 more spots if we saw someone trade up for him. So the Bruins are on the clock right now. They have a minute and a half left to make their decision, and we shall see what happens. They just announced a new logo, new jerseys. They're going to a little more of a retro type logo, so very interesting note there with the yellow trim around the B and the wheel. So we shall see what the Boston Bruins wind up picking. At 7th overall. At this point, I was hoping for some sort of one in the top 5 or at least in the top 10 to make some sort of a big trade. But at this point, it seems like nothing's happening. We shall see what happens. Like I said, Cairo seems to be on the block. Byram seems to be on the block. We could see Rossi be moved. We could see a couple of very interesting other guys get moved. So we shall see what happens here. So I definitely agree with some of these people here. I definitely think on Twitter, the decentralized draft is really, really weird. Seeing all of these front office people pick up from like Zoom calls. So, like, that's really, really weird in my opinion. So I definitely think they will probably go back to it next year is what it seems like. On top of that, it just feels a little bit off. And once again, day one's always very slow. They'd have teams take 2 minutes, then they announce the draft pick, then they talk about the draft pick for 5 minutes, and then they go to the next pick. So it's a very, very long draft on day one. Day two is always a lot quicker. They go pick. So tomorrow's going to be a lot more smoother, a lot more faster, and there's probably going to be a lot more trades tomorrow too, which is when I'm having my end-to-end hockey live stream for day 2 of the draft, which will be from about 10 a.m. Mountain Time to about 12 p.m. Mountain Time. So that's what's probably going to happen tomorrow. It's, oh my goodness, the Bruins are just sort of stacking things here. It's been 14 seasons since the Boston Bruins have made a top 10 selection. Oh my goodness. That's incredible. Like, that just shows you how dominant of a team Boston's been throughout the entire last couple of seasons. The pick is in, so the Bruins are not trading down. Very interesting note there. So we shall see who the Boston Bruins wind up taking here. I could see him take Hagens. That's where I had him fall in my mock draft yesterday. I do wonder if they go after a defenseman here in a Merka or a Smith, just given that they could definitely use another defensive prospect. I do wonder about if they did want to go to a different center. McQueen's available. O'Brien's available. Let's see. They're announcing the pick here. So let's see. It'll be very interesting to see who the Boston Bruins have taken this pick. Like I said, I think it's Hagens. I could see it be otherwise. It's going to be a very, very interesting thing to see who winds up going to the Boston Bruins here at 7th overall. They've made the pick. The Boston... Yep, it is. Just like my mock draft yesterday, the Bruins stop Hagen's fall. Hagens will be a Boston Bruin. And I think long term, as much as Martone's a good player, Martin's a good player, Desnoyers is a good player, to some extent Frondell's a good player, I think there are going to be maybe 2 or 3 teams in the top 6 who are going to regret passing on James Hagens. Hagens is a fantastically skilled player. He's on the smaller side. I think he's only 5'10", 5'11" in size, so he's not a bigger type player, which is what some of these other top end centers like a Desnoyers and like a Martin were. But he's got the potential of being an extremely dynamic top 6 forward. This is going to be a great pick for the Boston Bruins, which, as a Senators fan, as a Sabres fan, as I am right now, Senators and Sabres are 2 of my 4 favorite teams. This is going to be a really, really hard pick to bear with, because this is going to make the Bruins really good. Even if they're not good for the next year or 2, this is going to bring in what's going to be a very scary Bruins team going forward. Like, one of the big holes that the Boston Bruins had in the past year or 2 was their centers. The last 2 years they had Coyle and Zacha as their top 2 centers. That's not going to win you very many games, but if you put Hagens as your top line center, playing with a guy like David Pastrnak, that is going to be a scary and lethal duo in the Boston Bruins organization. Hagens is a center. He's on the smaller side, like I said. He put 37 points in 37 college games last year. Very, very skilled guy. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Jack Hughes type player. Maybe not to the full extent, but I think he can resemble Jack Hughes a tiny bit. And I do think this is going to be a stellar pick for the Boston Bruins 7th overall. So the top 7 prospects in this draft are exactly the same top 7 prospects I had in my mock draft. So very interesting note there. I know there are a lot of Islanders fans who are probably hating this right now because they wanted to get Hagens and they wanted to get Schaefer. But Hagens goes to Boston, and this is going to be a great draft selection for the Boston Bruins. Next up, we have the Seattle Kraken. In my mock draft, and I think they will go through this I think they will go through with this in the draft. I have them going after Mertka. Merka's a right shot defensive player, probably the best right shot defenseman on the trade board. He's 6'6". He's a behemoth of a blue liner. I think long term could be a top 4, if not top pair, right shot defenseman. Bigger type guy, hard to play against defensively, can put you up some points offensively. I think this is going to be a really solid pick here for Seattle if they do want to go in Merka. If it's not Merka, I could see him go first center here, maybe a Jack O'Brien, maybe a Roger McQueen, maybe one of those 2 guys. I'm not sure who else they could go after. Carter Bear would be a guy maybe on this sort of level who I could wind up seeing being taken. You've got Lakovic is another guy who I could wind up seeing taken here. Carbonneau, if they want to go forward. Once again, Smith and Merka, I think, are the best 2 guys available. I also think those are the best 2 defensemen available. So it'll be very interesting out there who Seattle ends up taking. But Hagens followed the stop where I predicted it yesterday. He goes to Boston. So right now, like over the past couple of drafts, when I predicted my drafts that had the mock draft, things like that, where I predicted everyone to go, I was wrong on a lot of them. But getting the 7 top prospects right, even if 4 through 6 were a little bit out of order, I'm really, really happy with myself with how well that's actually gone. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Are you surprised that the Islanders were not able to get Hagens? Are you surprised the Bruins got Hagens? Are you surprised by how any of the top 7 picks have gone so far? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. Love to communicate with you guys what you guys think of this stuff at this point in time. So if you can, leave a comment, chat down below. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. We'll get to some more. It's another commercial break, so we're probably going to get to some of the more action that happened from earlier today. So we're going to probably go over here. So very interesting note there. Hagens in Boston, and now Seattle will be on the clock. The Seattle Kraken. So we shall see what else happens here. Let's see. Hold on a minute here. Just looking at some things on Twitter. Very interesting note there. I'm sure there are a ton of Boston Bruins fans who are ecstatic with picking James Hagens at 7th overall. Like, that is an insanely good pick for the Boston Bruins. So, like I said, at this point, you have 8th overall in Seattle. You have 9th overall in Buffalo. You have 10th overall in Anaheim. And then we're done the top 10, which is very good. Because as soon as that's done, we have 22 more picks to go. And we're already an hour into our live stream. Like, day one. It's always a lot slower and a lot more difficult to call than day 2. Like tomorrow, I'm going to be calling off pick after pick after pick after pick after pick. Like it's definitely going to be a lot quicker tomorrow, and there'll probably be a lot more trades. Like I was expecting some sort of fireworks in the top 5 and maybe the top 7, top 8. Like I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but maybe we see a couple of trades like what was last year. Last year, the first trade was, I think, a Philadelphia-Minnesota swap of 12 and 13 that allowed Minnesota to get Bouillon. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Like at this point, I think the most likely trade scenario right now would probably be Pittsburgh at 11 or 12 or Columbus at 14. Those are probably the most likely ones. Like I think Seattle will probably keep 8. I think Buffalo will probably keep 9 unless there's some sort of massive move that they want to making. And I think Anaheim will probably take 10. Like we saw in the NFL draft a couple of weeks ago, I think it was like almost a month ago now, that there were some very interesting trades like Jacksonville and Cleveland. I know I was watching some of the draft at that point, but Jacksonville and Cleveland made a big swap at the draft for 5th and 2nd overall. Like I was hoping for something like that, or like some sort of a big time player was traded to the top 5 for a pick. Like I was hoping for something like that. The Kraken are almost off the clock here. They got 10 seconds left to decide what they're going to do here. I'll be very interested to note there. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The pick is in. So the Kraken, like I thought, are not trading. So I'm expecting Murka here. I think Murka is going to be a very solid top pair. Right shot defenseman. Reminds me a little bit of a Jamie Oleksiak type player, but maybe with a better skill set, more offensive potential. He's going to be a big frame, hard to play against. That's what I think the Seattle Kraken are going here. I think they could go after Smith, they could go after McQueen, could go after O'Brien. There's a couple of other pieces I could see them go after, but I definitely think this is going to be Murka. So we shall wait. They're announcing the pick. Once again, people are coming in, dropping in, or doing live stream things, just announcing the picks. So we shall see what happens here. We've got the Kraken on the clock now. So they are about to make their selection, and we shall see where the Seattle Kraken go here. So at this point, we have 1, Schaefer to the Islanders, 2, Misa to the Sharks, 3, Chicago has Frondell, 4, Utah has NYI, 5, Nashville has taken Martin, 6, Philly takes Martone, 7, Hagens is to Boston, and 8, it's not Murka. Wow, I thought after years and years of taking first round picks as forwards, they would have shied away from taking a forward this year. But no, they are taking O'Brien. They took O'Brien. That's a little bit of a surprise here. I thought he would fall now to the top 10. I was not expecting O'Brien to go this high. What a pick here from the Seattle Kraken to take Jake O'Brien. Great pickup here. He apparently led the OHL with 41 power play assists. So O'Brien's a center. He's not the biggest of guys. He's 6 foot, 277 pounds. Had 98 points last year in the OHL. Very solid top end guy, and this will be a very solid on the top end of the Seattle Kraken organization. Now I do wonder, with Seattle already having so many draft picks that have turned to centers, like they have Beniers, they have Wright, who should probably long-term be the team's top 2 centers. I wonder if they try and maybe transition O'Brien to be a winger. Maybe he's sort of a playmaker anyways, so he's sort of a bigger winger type, maybe make him like a power forward type guy. That could be a very interesting pickup here too. So I'm shocked here. This is really my first surprise. Like I thought Utah would go center, and they did wind up going NYI. I thought Nashville would go center. That's why they went Martin. I thought Philly would go best player available. They went Martone. I thought Hagens followed in at Boston. It did. This is the first real surprise I think of the draft. Like I thought for sure that Murka was going to go here to the Seattle Kraken, but he doesn't. So very interesting pick here by the Seattle Kraken. And now we're going to go over to the 9th overall selection. This is going to be a very interesting selection here. It's in Buffalo. The Buffalo Sabres are going to have the 9th overall selection. So it'll be very interesting to see if what happens with the Buffalo Sabres. Like I could definitely see some very intriguing things happen here. I think most likely Buffalo and Anaheim keep their selections. I think that's probably what's going to happen here. So very interesting note there. Like I said, O'Brien's not a bad player. Like I think he was going to go 10th or 11th. I just think with the amount of centers that this team has and has taken over the past couple of years, like they took Catan at 8th overall last year, who's a center. Why would they take O'Brien as another center? Like I guess you could never have too many centers. They could eventually transition to the wing. I just thought they would have taken a defenseman. Like I am absolutely shocked. At some point, I think someone's going to be going. Like, you have Beniers, Wright, Catan, and O'Brien. Unless you transition someone from center to wing, which I think is possible, maybe for a guy like Catan or potentially even O'Brien. Very interesting note there. I can't believe they took a center again. Like, look at their top picks in their drafts. First year, it was Beniers, and he was 2nd overall. It made sense for the Seattle Kraken. The second time they had the draft selection, it was Wright. He was 4th overall. They took Chalet with their third ever draft selection, and I think it was 2023. Last year, they took Catan. So like you got center, left winger, center. And now you've got another center. So in 4 of the first 5 ever drafts by Seattle Kraken, they used their own first round selection to take a center. They have never taken a defenseman in the first round in any of their drafts, which is extremely interesting. Like I am quite shocked that Seattle Kraken did not go after a center. Like I am completely and utterly flabbergasted by that. Buffalo's picks on the clock now. I think they definitely go defenseman here if they don't trade this pick. I think Merca's probably going to be the pick here. They need right shot defenseman. I didn't think Merca was going to be available at 9th overall. With Merca still being available at 9th overall, they need right shot defenseman. Merca, I think, will very likely be a pick for the Buffalo Sabres. I could see them go after Jackson Smith, who's another solid defensive player. I could see them have McQueen. I could see them maybe go after Eklund, maybe go after Hensler, Aitchison. There's a couple of really intriguing pieces here that the Buffalo Sabres could go after. So we shall wait and see on that. But the Seattle Kraken have taken O'Brien, which is the first real surprise in my opinion. I predicted in my mock draft O'Brien to I think go 11th overall to Pittsburgh. So he goes a little bit higher than I was expecting. Very interesting note there. Apparently, the most power play assists in OHL in a single season since 07-08. O'Brien is 2nd on the list. He's 1 assist ahead of Mitch Marner, and he's a little bit behind Asvedo. So very interesting note there. But he had a really good season over in the OHL, and like I said, do not get me wrong, he is a very talented center prospect. I just didn't think that's sort of the way that the Seattle Kraken were going to go after. So very, very interesting note there. But the Seattle Kraken have taken O'Brien 8th overall, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. We're going to 9th overall. That is the Buffalo Sabres. So Sabres are going to be really interesting to watch here. Like I think they go defenseman. Given their need for a right-handed guy, I do think they will go after Merca. I wouldn't be shocked if they went after Jackson Smith, because I do think he's a very solid puck-moving type defenseman. But I definitely do think the more likely scenario here would be to go after Merca, who I thought would have gone 8th overall. So very interesting note there. So interesting. We'll see what happens here. Yeah, like I'm really surprised that the Seattle Kraken passed on Merca. Like I thought for sure Merca was going to be the guy for the Seattle Kraken. So they don't wind up taking Merca, and they take O'Brien 8th overall, which I think paves the way for the Buffalo Sabres to take Merca 9th overall. So we shall see what happens with the Buffalo Sabres. They're about to make their pick. There's 20 seconds left. We are a quarter of the way through a draft, so it took about 20 minutes to start the draft, so it took an hour to get through a quarter of the way. So hopefully as things start to pick up, it goes a little bit quicker. Like I said, if it's around 2.5 hours, I might just leave the last few picks, so if there's any trades or something, and we'll talk about that tomorrow's live stream. We shall see what happens there. But we definitely do have some very interesting things. I'm still going to be with you for probably at least the next hour, if not maybe a tiny bit longer. So we shall wait and see on that. But we got the 9th overall pick on the clock right now. The Buffalo Sabres. I don't see the pick is in sign yet. We shall wait and see what the Buffalo Sabres are planning on doing. Let's see. It definitely seems like someone's walking. The pick is in. Okay, so there is a pick going in here for the Buffalo Sabres. Not exactly sure who it will be, but they're not trading it or anything. So I saw a couple people out there say that maybe number 9 overall could wind up being on the block for this Buffalo Sabres, but it's not. They're going to be making the pick. They've got people coming to announce the pick, as they have been all night. So we shall see what happens with the Buffalo Sabres. I personally think Merca's the pick here. They need a right-shot defenseman. They have a plethora of solid top-end forward prospects. They need a defensive prospect. I could see Smith. If it's not Smith, it's got to be Merca. I got to think that that's the opportunity here. So we shall see what happens with the Buffalo Sabres. Give me a second here while they announce the pick. Let's see. The Buffalo Sabres are going to be selecting with the 9th overall pick. Let's see. It is Merca. I called it. I didn't call it in my mock draft, but I called it right now. If Merca fell to the Buffalo Sabres, they had to get him. Right shot defenseman, which is a position of need for the Sabres. A top-end guy, very lethal, puck-moving defenseman, bigger size, reminds me of Jamie Oleksiak. They have power, they have Dahlin, they just acquired Kesselring. You add Merca as a top pair guy to maybe play with power or Dahlin, that is going to be a scary, scary blue line to face for years to come. So I like this pick. 100% I like this pick. I thought if Merca somehow fell behind the cracks of the Seattle Kraken, the grasp of the Seattle Kraken, and fell to the Buffalo Sabres, the Sabres would scoop him up because he is a solid right shot defenseman, the best right shot defenseman in my opinion in this draft. So very interesting note there. The Buffalo Sabres have selected Merca. He had a great season over in the WHL, really solid player there, and I think he's going to be a really good pickup here for the Buffalo Sabres. I thought for sure Merca would have gone to the Seattle Kraken, and the Buffalo Sabres wouldn't have any chance to acquire him, but they do. And I think this is going to be a steal of an addition here for the Seattle Kraken, for the Buffalo Sabres. So very, very interesting note there. But the Buffalo Sabres have taken Merca, top pair, right shot defenseman, bigger frame, someone who's going to be scary to face in the NHL. So very interesting note there. He's putting on his Buffalo Sabres jersey. Really, really great pickup here for the Buffalo Sabres. Like I said, I thought he was from Seattle, play with this, not from Seattle, but play with the Thunderbirds this past year. I mean, connections were there, but the Seattle Kraken somehow, weirdly enough, wound up allowing him to slip through the cracks, and the Seattle Kraken take O'Brien, but the Buffalo Sabres do wind up taking Merca. Like, I definitely really do like Merca. This is a fantastic pickup here. 6'6", right-handed defenseman, and a stellar puck mover. Like, I think this is all the Buffalo Sabres needed to add to a guy, to an offense that already has Dahlin power. Like, I think long-term, this is going to be a fantastic pickup. Just give me a second, guys. I'm still here, everything. I'm just going to switch the banner for a minute. I'm going to switch it to the Buffalo Sabres. Just give me a second here. I got to switch this while they're talking about the Buffalo Sabres. And then just give me a second here. Hold on. Let's see. Once again, I am a Seattle Kraken fan and a Buffalo Sabres fan, so I am very happy that the Buffalo Sabres took Merca. I'm a little bit disappointed that the Seattle Kraken passed up on Merca. So I am very interested by those things, but we are putting together the Buffalo Sabres banner here because they made one heck of a really good pick here in taking Merca. And once again, I might switch the banners a little bit throughout the rest of the day. So don't be surprised if I do wind up standing up a little bit here and switching some things up. But we do wind up seeing that Radim Merca goes to the Buffalo Sabres. What an amazing pick from the Buffalo Sabres. So very interesting note there, but the Sabres do wind up taking Merca. So lots of intriguing stuff here. I'll recap the top 10 once this Anaheim Ducks pick is finished. So very interesting note there. The Sabres are talking to Merca through video call because it's a decentralized draft. So very interesting note there. We're probably going to have to wait another 5 minutes before I figure out who the Anaheim Ducks go with. So at this point, I think they still could go with Roger McQueen. I could see him go with defenseman here and go Jackson Smith if they really wanted to add some more blue line help. I could see them go after Eklund. He's a really solid left winger. I think if they did want to go with a winger type player, Eklund might be a very good fit here for the Anaheim Ducks. So I definitely think McQueen's a possibility. Smith is a possibility. possibility. Eklund's a possibility. Maybe an outside chance for a guy like Hensler. Maybe an outside chance for a guy like Aitchison. Maybe an outside chance for one of those guys, or a Carter Bear. But I definitely think it's probably going to be one of Eklund, Smith, or McQueen. I gotta think it's one of those three for the Anaheim Ducks. I think they could improve their center group, they could improve their wing group, or they could improve their defensive group. I think those are the three best prospects at each of those selections. So we're gonna have to wait and see what happens there. Let us check out what happens next. The Anaheim Ducks are on the clock. Very interesting note there. So it'll be interesting to know what happens there. I don't know what's going to go next. The Ducks pick, or is that just recapping? I think that's just recapping. Yeah, that's Schaefer being picked. Once again, Schaefer, beautiful that he got first overall to the New York Islanders. Now, I do really wonder what happens with Pittsburgh, because they do have 2 first-round picks. I do wonder if I don't think they'll trade up anymore. I wonder if they maybe trade down. That's a possibility, I do think, for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So you have the Anaheim Ducks at 10th overall. After that, you have Pittsburgh at 11, Pittsburgh at 12, Detroit 13, Columbus at 14, Vancouver at 15, and Montreal at 16. Or the Islanders at 16, thanks to Montreal and the Dobson trade earlier today. I could see Pittsburgh maybe trade down. I do wonder if the Jackets still try and make some sort of a big swing here with the 14th overall pick. The Canucks maybe with the 15th overall pick. Maybe the Islanders do something, but I think they're most likely either going to keep those 2 first-round picks or maybe trade down a little bit. So we shall see what happens here, but Anaheim's next. I don't expect them to move the pick. I think they will probably keep that pick. I could wind up seeing Pittsburgh maybe move a pick or 2. We'll have to wait and see on that. Anaheim's on the clock right now. They got a minute left to make their selection or trade the pick. So we shall wait and see on that. Just going over to recap some things that happened earlier today. So just to recap, John Tavares has signed an extension in the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, 4-year contract extension with an AAV of $4.83 million for what some people thought he could get on the open market. This is a steal of a deal for the for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Sam Bennett signs an 8x8 extension with the Florida Panthers, similar to what happened with Sam Reinhart last year. He was expected to get a huge raise on his contract in free agency, but instead takes a little bit of a pay cut and stays in Florida. On top of that, you had Saad. Saad wound up staying in Vegas, sent a 1-year deal, $2 million. Really solid pickup here for the Vegas Golden Knights to keep Brendan Saad. You also had Trent Frederick's extension be announced, 1 year, 8 years at $3.85 million. Really solid stuff there from the Edmonton Oilers to extend him, although I do think that sort of a deal is not overly great there for the Edmonton Oilers. The pick is in for the Anaheim Ducks, so they got to do the announcements and things like that. But the Ducks do have the first pick, or the 10th overall pick in this draft, their first pick of this draft. I don't think they have another one in the first round. No, they don't. They'll probably have a couple more tomorrow, but they don't have another first-round pick in this year's draft. So very interesting note there. The Ducks are on the clock. They're about to make their pick. They're having people come out to make the selection, so we shall see what happens. Ducks' recent moves. They traded Zegras. They got Paling, a 2nd-round pick and a 4th-round pick in return. That was a solid move there from the Anaheim Ducks a couple of days ago to finally get out of the Zegras contract and the situation that Zegras was in. I could see him maybe do a couple other things. We shall wait and see. But it sounds like they are going to make the pick. The Ducks are about to make the selection for number 10 overall. So we shall see who goes 10th overall and completes the top 10 draft selections of the 2025 draft. Once again, we're going to recap it as soon as the 10th overall pick's been announced. So the Anaheim Ducks, I'm thinking Jackson Smith on defense, Eklund on the winger side, or McQueen on the forward group, the center group. One of those three, I think, have to be going to the Anaheim Ducks. I think it has to be going to the Anaheim Ducks. So we shall see who the Anaheim Ducks go after. The Ducks are just about to make their selection. Then Pittsburgh has back-to-back picks. Let's see who the Anaheim Ducks have. Is it going to be Smith? Is it going to be Eklund? Is it going to be McQueen? I predicted McQueen in my mock draft. We shall see who ends up going here at number 10 overall to round out the top 10 of the 2025 draft. We are over an hour and a half into this live stream. The selections been made. It is another draft selection I was right on my mock draft. Let's go. Roger McQueen is an Anaheim Duck. What a beautiful addition there for the Anaheim Ducks. McQueen, at certain points this year, earlier on, once the season started for the NHL, was projected to be a top 5 pick in this year's draft, potentially even a top 4 pick. But he suffered an injury in the WHL, I think it was, only allowed to play 17 games this year because of that injury. He did put up 17 points in those 17 games, so he was a very productive player in the games he was able to get into. But that injury sort of didn't allow other teams to scout him, which pushed him a little bit down the draft. But I thought with the Ducks having so many solid talents, they would stop his fall at 10th overall, get a solid player here. And that's what they do. McQueen goes to the Anaheim Ducks. So great pickup here for Anaheim. So for the Ducks, this is fantastic. They get McQueen. I think McQueen in the Ducks organization is going to be a solid top 6 guy. This Ducks core has such really good talent on the forward group. You have Senek, who they just drafted last year. They have McTavish. They have Terry. They just traded Seagrass, but they do have a couple of other really solid younger players. They have Katagoche. You add McQueen to that team. McQueen is a solid center or winger. He can play on the wing too. He's a very versatile guy. So you could have McQueen be their second line center behind Mason McTavish, or you could have him play on the wing, maybe even play with Mason McTavish on the wing. There's a lot of different options here for the Anaheim Ducks, but it's another great center prospect here for the Anaheim Ducks as McQueen goes 10th overall in the 2025 draft. So that's so far what we have here. No guarantees that this is completely it yet, because we do have picks 11 through 32 to talk about, at least maybe a couple of. Maybe we won't have all of those 22 picks be announced today. I might end the live stream and then talk about the other picks tomorrow. So we have to wait and see. But the Anaheim Ducks round out the top 10 by taking Roger McQueen, which is exactly what I picked. I got McQueen right. I got Hagens right. I got Frondell right. I got Misa right. I got Schaefer right, and I got 3 picks in Martin, Desnoyers, and Martin. In the 4th through 6th area, I just had them in the wrong order. So at this point in time, I'm quite happy with how this has gone. So now we get serious. Pittsburgh has back-to-back picks. I wouldn't be overly shocked if the Pittsburgh Penguins use both of the back-to-back picks here. I could also see them trade one of those picks, so we should wait and see. They have 11, they have 12. We'll have to wait and see if there's something here. Just going over to Twitter to see if there's any sort of announcements of like trade chatter or something. Like, we're definitely going to have more trades tomorrow. I think it's a guarantee, so we should have to wait and see on that. Also, just looking here, the Buffalo Sabres have probably one of the biggest defensive cores in the NHL. You have Power, who's 6'6", Merca, who's 6'6", Kesselring, who's 6'4", Samuelson, who's 6'4", Dahlin, who's 6'3". They have a couple of lower-end prospects who are also above 6 foot. Like, that's going to be a tough defense when all those guys make the NHL to play against. Like, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 prospects or NHL level players above 6'2". Like, that is incredible for the Buffalo Sabres. So like I said, I think Merca to Sabres, great pickup there for Buffalo. Very interesting note there. Let's see if there's anything being talked about here. So when we look at picks that have been mentioned as potential trade fodder, we've heard about Pittsburgh and 11th and 12th being mentioned, but those was mostly for being traded upwards. So I don't think those will be mentioned for trading anymore unless they're traded down. You have Detroit's 13th overall is never really mentioned as a trade pick. The 14th overall pick for Columbus, that could wind up being something that winds up getting moved. 15th overall for Vancouver will wind up being moved. That could be a potential one. 20th overall for Columbus will wind up potentially being moved. 24th overall for Los Angeles, one of Nashville's later picks, was also being mentioned in trade chatter. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Like, I definitely could wind up seeing some sort of a trade happen. So we shall wait and see. But very interesting note there. So we've got lots of interesting things. Just to recap, the top 10 draft picks in this year's draft. The Ducks took McQueen 10th overall. The Sabres took Merca 9th overall. The Kraken took O'Brien 8th overall. The Bruins took Hagens 7th overall. Flyers took Martin 6th overall. Preds took Martin 5th overall. Desnoyers went to Utah at 4th overall. 3rd overall, Frondell goes to Chicago. 2nd overall, San Jose goes to Misa. Misa goes to San Jose. And 1st overall, Schaefer goes to NYI. So what a great pickup here for some of these teams. We're through the top 10. We're now going into the 11th through 20. So we shall see what happens there. The Penguins are on the clock. We shall wait and see if they do wind up moving one of those picks or wind up trading them. So we shall see what happens there. They're showing the Hawks and Flyers and all those fans' reactions to the players who they were taking. So very interesting there. We do have a lot of very intriguing action so far. They're going to commercial break. So we shall probably have updates on Pittsburgh when we come back. They have back-to-back picks. So I do wonder if maybe it goes a little bit quicker because they have, interesting to note there, they have 2 picks. I do wonder if they go a little bit quicker because they are back-to-back. So we should figure out what happens. So at this point, the Penguins are in a different direction than most NHL teams. They are looking to get bad. Rust's on the trade block, Raquel's on the trade block, Carlson's on the trade block. This team's looking to get worse in the very near future and then get better eventually. I think this team really wants to try and go after McKenna in next year's draft, first overall. So we shall see exactly what happens there. But I mean, the Pittsburgh Penguins could really start the rebuild off really well if they took the 11th and 12th overall pick and used them. I could see maybe trade down to try and get some more trade fodder. Like I do think if they moved maybe like 8 or 9 picks down into like the Islanders pick, the Flames pick, the Blues pick, maybe try to add like a second round pick to that sort of a deal. I could see that happening for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So they got 20 seconds left. We're back from commercial break. We shall see if this Penguins team does wind up selecting someone. 15 seconds left. The clock's ticking down. They have back-to-back picks here, so they have 11th, they have 12th. We shall see if they use both these picks, or if they do wind up maybe only using one of them and using another one in a trade. I think if they do make a trade, it's to trade down. I don't think they trade it for some sort of improvement right now. If any team was to do that, it would probably be Columbus or Vancouver right now in the next 10 picks. So we'll have to wait and see on that. We'll have to wait and see. They're just showing the Pittsburgh front office right now in their owner building because remember they're doing Zoom calls, things like that. It's only the Penguins' 4th first-round selection in the last 10 years. That's crazy. Once again, just like Boston, shows you how good of a team the Pittsburgh Penguins have been over the past couple of years. I think they've missed, 3 straight Stanley Cup playoff series. So it'll be very interesting to note there. The pick is in. Okay, so they kept at least the 11th overall pick. They're not trading that one. So that's very interesting to note there. I wonder if they maybe could trade for the 12th overall selection. That's a possibility, I guess. We shall wait and see. The 11th overall pick's about to be announced. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We're still waiting for what happens with the Pittsburgh Penguins. I do wonder who they wind up taking. Let's see. They are keeping pick 11. It does seem like Chris Letang is going to be making this announcement here, so very interesting note there. I'm probably expecting Eklund, maybe Jackson Smith. Those are 2 picks that I still think will be on the board for Pittsburgh Penguins. Hensler's a possibility. Maybe Carter Bear, Aitchison, Lakovic, one of those guys. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Letang is out there with the center now to announce the Pittsburgh Penguins pick at 11th overall. And let's see, the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to announce at 11th overall. This team is taking, let's see who it is. Let's see, 11th overall, Pittsburgh takes. You've got to be kidding me. This is an off-the-board type pick. The Pittsburgh Penguins, with the 11th overall selection, are taking Benjamin Kindell. Okay, this is a way more off-the-board pick than Jake O'Brien to Seattle. Kindell, I projected to go 18th overall to Calgary. And in the earlier mock drafts, I didn't even have him in the top 20. Wow, I'm surprised. Kindell had 23-game point streak with the Calgary Hitmen, which is over in the WHL. Kindell, he's on the smaller side, but he's a winger, and he's a very lethal one at that. I thought because of the connections with Calgary playing in the WHL, I thought he probably would have dropped to Calgary, maybe even a little bit lower, and I thought Calgary would have taken him, or he would have probably fallen out of the top 20. Taking him at 11th overall is a really big surprise for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That's insane. So the Pittsburgh Penguins do have the 12th overall pick. We shall see in a couple of years' time if they cooked or not. But the Pittsburgh Penguins do take Kindell at 11th overall. And even though I think he's on a smaller side, this could be the makings of a really solid pickup here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. So all in all, really solid stuff here. We are almost at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We're about 20 minutes away from there. We're about 20 minutes away from from being 2 hours into this live stream, and there's still going to be a lot of draft selections that happen. So once again, I'm probably going to stay with you guys for about 2.5 hours through the live stream. After that, we'll sort of go pick by pick and see exactly where we're going to end the live stream. And if I do end the live stream, we'll still pick a couple of picks left to go in the first round. I will definitely be able to start tomorrow's live stream maybe 15 minutes earlier and go over the picks that I missed. So we shall see and wait on that. Kendall's going to talk to the Pittsburgh Penguins. We shall see what happens with the 12th overall pick, because they also have that. So once again, this is a surprising move in my opinion. I definitely thought Kendall would have gone at least out of the top 15, but to see him go almost top 10 overall, that is surprising. That's a pick I did not have coming. So very interesting note there. But the Pittsburgh Penguins take Benjamin Kendall to 11th overall. Very, very surprising to note there. Let's see, is there any updates when it comes to potential trades or something? Let's see. Let's see. Nothing really at this point. Pittsburgh's on the clock again. Remember, this pick was thanks to J.T. Miller. The Vancouver Canucks traded J.T. Miller to the New York Rangers, and the Rangers traded them a top 13 projected first-round pick. The Canucks then immediately flipped that to the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Marcus Pettersson. So very interesting note there. And now they have the 12th overall pick because the Rangers deferred to move them this pick instead of the 2026 unprotected pick. So there'll be a very interesting note there. I do wonder what we could wind up seeing here. Kendall, 11th overall to Pittsburgh. We shall see who ends up going 12th overall at Pittsburgh. I definitely think there's going to be very, very intriguing stuff here. So we shall see what happens at 12th overall for Pittsburgh. They're still on the clock. So we shall see what exactly happens for the Pittsburgh Penguins and if there's some sort of a trade. So we shall see. They got 2 minutes left on the clock to try and make some sort of a move. We shall see what happens. So we'll have to wait and see what exactly happens here. Like I said, still lots of moving parts. I do wonder about 14th and 15th overall. Those are two most likely, I think, potential picks to get dealt, because I do think that the Jackets have some irons in the fire and could wind up dealing 14th overall. And there's been some talk about the Canucks moving 15th overall for the right player. So we shall see what happens there. Let's see. It does sound like Pittsburgh might be making a trade according to Elliot Friedman. We'll see what happens here, but definitely does sound like the Pittsburgh Penguins are making a trade. Let's just wait here and see exactly what's happening. Yep, Gary Bettman is on the podium right now. They are making a trade. Let us see what this trade is. Very interesting note there. Of course, Bettman doing everything. So we'll see what happens here. It sounds like it might be no guaranteed information at this point. It sounds like it might be with Philadelphia. Philadelphia made the first trade, pick-for-pick swap last year. Trade down, allowed Minnesota to get Booyah. Let's see what the picks are going to be here. It sounds like Pittsburgh has made a trade. I wonder who I'll be with. I'm waiting to see the info on the trade for Pittsburgh and see who's going to be on the clock now with the 12th overall pick. Let us see. Hold the phone. It's a Pennsylvanian trade. The Pittsburgh Penguins have dealt 12th overall to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for the 22nd overall pick and the 31st overall pick. So the Penguins now own the 31st overall pick right here, just below the San Jose Sharks, and the 22nd overall pick here, just below the Ottawa Senators, and the Philadelphia Flyers are now on the clock. So we shall see what the Philadelphia Flyers do. It'll be very interesting to see who they go for. The Philadelphia Flyers. Let's see. So they just took Martone with the 6th overall pick. So they took a winger. So I could see him go after the defenseman or center here, because both those are very weak positions there for the Flyers. Eklund is someone who I could see go here. He was projected 12th overall to Pittsburgh in my mock draft. I could see Jackson Smith. He's the only guy who I think's really fallen off the board. O'Brien, Mertka, McQueen, Kendall. Yeah, I think Eklund's really the only one who's not fallen down. So I could see Eklund. If they really want to go defense, I do wonder about Hensler or Aitchison here. If they wanted to go center, a guy like Carter Bear makes sense to me. Maybe a guy like Rybikin. Maybe a guy like, who else? Lakovic could be a potential option here. Coots. At this point, I could potentially see Coots wind up being taken, given Kindell went to 11th overall. So we shall see what happens here. I could definitely see something happen like that. So we're probably going to be with you for at least another 45 minutes, if not maybe a tiny bit more time. We shall see what happens. And once again, if there's more picks that wind up happening, I might just wind up leaving them and go over them tomorrow. So we shall see what happens. Like, I don't think I'm going to stay here for the entire draft with how slow it's going. I'll probably wind up leaving around pick 22, 23. We might guess, and we'll announce the other picks tomorrow morning. I'll probably wind up getting up a little bit earlier and doing the live stream a little bit earlier. So we shall wait and see on that. But Pittsburgh, Philadelphia made a trade. Very, very interesting trade here between the Penguins and the Flyers. So I do wonder who the Flyers have here going 12th overall. Like, I think it'd probably be a center. It'd probably be Coots, or potentially you got Coots. You've got Bear. You've got Lakovic. Probably one of those guys, Rybikin, probably one of those four guys if they wanted to go for a center. If they wanted to go defenseman, I'm looking at Hensler or Aitchison, who I think are probably the best two at the separate positions. Hensler's the best righty, Aitchison's the best lefty. So I do wonder who the Philadelphia Flyers go for. There's 20 seconds left on the clock. It was just a pick-for-pick swap. Just so if any of you guys are coming, the first trade of the day has happened, at least as of the draft. The Pittsburgh Penguins moved the 12th overall pick they got from the New York Rangers to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for the 22nd and 31st overall pick that Philly acquired at earlier dates. So very interesting note there. The Flyers are on the clock as we sit right now. The pick is in, so the Flyers will be making another selection. So the Flyers do have two picks that they're making in the top 12 rounds of the picks. So very interesting note there. I do wonder who the Philadelphia Flyers go after. I'm thinking Coots, Bear, Lakovic, or Rybikin as one of the picks here. They have Brendan Graham on video call right now announcing the pick. So very interesting note there. We shall see who winds up being selected. I definitely do wonder who winds up being the selection here for the Philadelphia Flyers. Like I said, I think it's going to be a center, probably because of their weak center group and after going after Martone. I could see a defenseman here, potentially Aitchison or potentially Hensler. I do think one of those two possibility. We'll have to wait and see. Let's see who the Flyers go here. The Flyers take, let's see. You've got to be kidding me. The Flyers trade up and take Jack Nesbitt. Nesbitt, I don't even think was on my trade mock draft yesterday. I think I had him as like one of the maybe late round, first round picks, or someone who would drop into the second round. The Flyers trade up and get him. Like, that makes no sense to me. Like, they moved off of 2 first round picks and get Nesbitt, who I definitely think would have fallen farther. That's an interesting one. Nesbitt's, I think, a center prospect or a winger. He's a forward guy. Very interesting note there that the Flyers take Nesbitt. I need to sort of see. Yeah, it's a center prospect. Very interesting pick here for the Philadelphia Flyers. Once again, I thought they'd go center. I thought they'd go Coots. I thought they'd go Bear, Lakovic, maybe Rybikin. They go for Nesbitt. That's an interesting one. I'm quite surprised that the Philadelphia Flyers go after Nesbitt instead of some of those other pieces here. So very interesting note there that the Flyers go after Nesbitt. I think long term he could be a second, maybe even top line center. It reminds me a lot of Luchenko last year. Like the Flyers traded down from 12th to 13th to allow Minnesota to get Buyam, and they took Luchenko 13th overall. This is giving me a lot of types of what happened last year. Like, Luchenko's a good player. Do not get me wrong, but was he really good enough to be taken 13th overall? Like, we'll have to wait and see. But this is sort of giving me Luchenko vibes. Like, the Flyers trade up, they trade 22nd, they trade 31st, they get 12th overall, and they take Jack Nesbitt. That's a really interesting pickup here for the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't know exactly what they're going to do here, but they now have no more picks for this draft. The Penguins have their other 2 picks. So, very interesting note there. Detroit's not going to be on the board. So, you have Victor Eklund, who I think fell a little bit from my last draft. Let's see. You have O'Brien, Mertka, yes. Okay, Eklund and Smith, I think, are the 2 guys who have fallen out of the top 12, who I predicted to go top 12. So you got Smith on the defensive side, Eklund's a solid winger. I predicted them to go after Hensler because I thought they could definitely use a solid top-end defensive prospect. But if Smith is still there, which he is, I could see him go after Smith. So it's either Smith, Hintzel, or Aitchison to me. The biggest problem for this Red Wings team is defense. I think they have to go after a defenseman. After that, I could see the Jackets trade away that 14th overall pick. We'll have to wait and see. Really stunned here that the Philadelphia Flyers took Nesbitt over Smith or Eklund. Very interesting note there. Or even some of the lower end center prospects. So very interesting note there. And the Flyers do wind up doing that. I do wonder what the New York Islanders wind up doing here with the 16th and 17th overall pick, what the Jackets do with 14 and 20, what the Preds do with 26 and 23, what the Penguins now do with 22 and 31. Like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen here. So, very interesting note there. But like I said, Nesbitt just really, really reminds me of Luchenko last year. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But the Philadelphia Flyers trade up 10 spots from 22 to 12, also give up 31, and they take Nesbitt 12th overall. So very interesting note there. Very, very interesting draft. I mean, the top 7 were exactly how I was expecting them to go. Since then, really, a little bit of a shitty cup, especially with Nesbitt and Kindell going 11 and 12. Like, that's stunning to me, so very interesting note there. But we definitely have some more interesting things happening. I do wonder if we see a player trade. Like, it would be very fun to see a player trade today. Probably won't see anything until tomorrow, so it'll be very interesting note there. But I definitely do think that we could see some more things happen over the next couple of days. I definitely do think we could see some more interesting things happening tomorrow. So at this point in time, we have our top 12 picks. 12th overall is Nesbitt to Philly. 11th overall is Pittsburgh taking Kindell. 10th overall is McQueen going to Anaheim. 9th is Buffalo taking Merca. 8th overall is O'Brien going to Seattle. 7th overall, Hagens, Boston. 6th overall, Martone, Philly. 5th overall, it's Nashville taking Martin. 4th overall, NYI goes to Utah. 3rd is Frondell to Chicago. 2nd is Misa to San Jose. 1st overall is Schaefer to NYI. So very interesting note there. The Detroit Red Wings are now on the board. So it'll be very interesting note there. Like I said, Nesbitt, Luchenko, they're both solid center prospects. Are they going to be top 2 guys at the NHL level? I mean, they could both challenge for second line center roles. I think that's sort of their ceiling. I don't think these guys are top line centers for the Philadelphia Flyers. So even though I think they are really solid pieces, it's a little bit of a baffling move there for Philadelphia to trade 2 first-round picks for a pick that's 10 spots higher, and then they wind up taking Nesbitt. So very interesting note there. We're on the clock for the 13th overall selection. So we shall see what happens there with the Detroit Red Wings. Their pick is now on the clock. They have just over a minute left to pick, so very interesting note there. Like I said, so Nesbitt's a little bit of a surprise in my opinion. I don't know exactly what else the Flyers could wind up doing. Like, they just traded 2 first-round picks, so I definitely don't think they're going to be doing too much today. So very interesting note there. On top of that, like, if it comes to trades, I'm looking at Columbus's 14th overall pick, Vancouver's 15th overall pick. Maybe the Islanders trade down with the 16th or 17th overall. Columbus could trade 20th overall. I do wonder about maybe one of the later picks that the Penguins have, the Predators have, or the Flames have, or maybe even the Sharks have, because they do have multiple first-round picks. I don't think they'll use all of them, so I could see some of those teams maybe do something similar to what Philly did with Pittsburgh. So we're going to wait and see what happens there. They have 45 seconds left to see who Detroit winds up taking. So very interesting note there. Just to let you guys know about a couple of earlier things that happened. John Tavares signed a 4-year contract extension with the AAV of $4.38 million. Solid player. I think he's going to be a very fantastic addition here for the Seattle Kraken. I definitely think for the Toronto Maple Leafs keeping Tavares, I think that's a really smart move there for the Leafs. He took a very good hometown discount, so very interesting note there. On top of that, you had Sam Bennett sign an 8x8 contract to stay in Florida. Frederick signed 3.85 times 8, so he was able to stay in Edmonton. You had hold on a minute here, Saad signing in Vegas. And then you also had a couple of trades with Dobson going to Montreal, signing an extension in there. Going to be a solid top 4 addition for the Montreal Canadiens. Was number 7 on my end-to-end hockey trade bait list. You also had Coyle and Wood going to Columbus for a couple of draft picks, and Brindley, and Coyle, who's in trade finally of his deal. Wood, solid bomb 6 forward with term. Could both be really solid pickups here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Coyle was number 24, if I'm correct, on my trade bait list. So very interesting note there. But we've seen a couple of trades earlier today. We saw one trade, draft pick swap earlier today. The Red Wings pick is in. They are going to be selecting here. So we'll have to wait and see who they wind up selecting. I do think it could be a very interesting pickup here for Detroit. They're announcing their selection, and the Detroit Red Wings are going to be selecting. I think it's Hensler or Smith. I think it's one of those two defensemen. I gotta think it's one of those two guys. Wouldn't be one bit surprised if anything else happens here. Like, they have the pick. Maybe they go after Eklund because he's falling a little bit. Solid puck moving left winger. Could see that happen. Maybe we should have to wait and see. We're nearly halfway through the first round of the draft here, so definitely been a long draft here. It's going to be a lot shorter. It's going to be a lot shorter tomorrow. Probably going to take like 2.5 hours to get through the entire draft. Now I'm going to be with you guys for the first, second, third, and fourth rounds. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned for tomorrow. It'll be 10 a.m. Mountain Time, maybe a little bit earlier if we don't get through all the first round picks this year in this live stream that we'll be starting our mock draft. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned. Get up early tomorrow and tune into my second day 2 mock draft, talking about the draft that happens today. The Rings are just announcing the pick here at 13th overall. I think it's Hensler. I wouldn't be surprised if it was Smith, maybe Aitchison, maybe Eklund. I could see one of those guys get it. Let's see, the Red Wings take Carter Bear. Okay. A little bit of a surprising here, but only have him going 2 picks lower in my mock draft. He's a center/left winger. He's a very versatile guy. Seems to be a guy who can probably be a solid power forward type player at the NHL level. Hold the phone here. Let me just check something out. Hold on. I think this is going to be a really solid pickup here for the Detroit Red Wings. Middle six guy. I'm not sure if he'll be able to be a top line player in Detroit, but I definitely think he should be a center or a winger. Could easily be a very fantastic addition here for this team. Let's just hold on here so I can get a little bit more info on these guys. Let's see. Hold the phone here. Just give me one quick second so I can get to this here. Let's see. Hold on. Schaefer, Misa, Frondell, NYI, Martin, Hagens, Martin, Mertka, O'Brien, McQueen. No, that's different. Okay. Hold on a minute here. Let me go back to this. Let's see. Very interesting note there. We're still waiting on some things that happened in Sportsnet, so we have to wait and see on that. Let's just see. Some things have happened here on Sportsnet. Just give me a second to try and get this back up. Hold on a minute here. See if I can get this back up. Yeah, so they're talking to Bear in Detroit. Let's see if we have a mock draft update here. Hold on a minute. Just give me one quick second so I can get this worked out. Hold on. We're going to be on the block with next one would be Columbus. I do wonder if the Jackets wind up making a trade here, because I do think the Jackets could definitely use someone. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to make a deal. Kyrou comes to mind. Byram. They had a lot of interest in Dobson. Yeah, okay, here. So this is what it is. So at this point in time, we have some very interesting things here. So the Flyers made Nesbitt. The Detroit Red Wings took Carter Bear. The Jackets are now on the clock with the 14th overall selection. So we shall see if the Jackets keep that pick or end up moving it. It'll be very interesting to see that. We have now hit 2 hours of our live stream. So we'll be here for at least the next half an hour. Probably get through the first 20 picks, maybe around 22, 23, depending on how long that takes. So probably about 10 more picks. At around the Nashville Predators 23rd overall pick, LA Kings 24th overall pick, I'll probably call it a stream, and then I'll get up earlier a little bit tomorrow and just announce any sort of small trades or things that happened. Maybe do a little bit 15 minutes earlier, maybe start the stream at 9:45 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. just to get through all the stuff that I missed. So we shall wait and see on that. Once again, love to hear your guys' thoughts. Leave a chat in the chat down below. Love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat. Love to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments. What are you guys surprised by anything that's happened today? Left your guys' thoughts. We have the Blue Jackets on the clock right now, so we shall see what happens there for them. Just give me a minute here. I've got some things I need to open up. Jackets are on the clock. So I do wonder if we see a trade here for Columbus. I could see the Jackets make some sort of a deal. They're talking to Carter Bear right now, who's in Red Wings gear, so very interesting note there. He's got a jersey on, he's got his hat on, so very interesting note there. Very interesting to see that Carter Bear went 13th overall. I wasn't expecting him to go 12th overall if the Rangers kept the pick, because he sort of seemed to me like the sort of Rangers type player. But going 13th overall to Detroit's not overly bad, so very interesting note there. Let's see. Very, very interesting. So Flyers, do they really get a whole bunch better? I do think they get a little bit better. Nesbitt can be a solid second-line center. I think Martone's going to be a very lethal top-end winger. Boston got better. They got their first-line center. Nashville got better. Long-term might be able to get Martin as a first-line center. Utah's got their second-line center in NYI. Chicago's got their second-line center in Frondell. Maybe top-line center if they move Bedard to the wing. The San Jose Sharks got a solid top-six winger in Misa. The Islanders got Schaefer. Lots and lots of intriguing things here. So very interesting note there. Probably going to be with you here for the next 10 draft selections, and then probably around the 23rd, 24th overall pick, I'll call it a stream, and we'll touch on the rest of those draft picks tomorrow morning. That happens, so we'll see what happens there. We're still looking at what exactly is going to happen here, so stay with us. Very interesting note there. I'm going to probably stay with you until Nashville, Los Angeles' pick. Columbus is on the clock. I do wonder if we see some sort of a trade, maybe. We see some sort of a trade. I do wonder if we could see something else happen. Kevin Weeks recently posted seeing eyes on Twitter to New York Islanders. That was about 20 minutes ago. So I do wonder if the Islanders could be maybe trading down for something, or we could see that, something like that. We'll have to wait and see. I do wonder about the Jackets. Maybe something happens here with the Jackets. If it's not 14th, they have to make some sort of move with 20th. You gotta think the Jackets have to move either 14 or 20. You gotta think that. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Once again, stay tuned. We'll start a live stream tomorrow. Once again, we'll see what happens tomorrow, and once again, I'll cover the later round draft picks tomorrow too. Probably at some point tomorrow after the live stream, I'll do another video talking about any trades that happened that I didn't cover in that video that I'm going to be posting after this live stream, any sort of big signings, and on top of that, I'm going to do a 2025 first round recap, basically just recapping all of the first round picks. The Jackets have 9 seconds. We'll see if they make this. It seems like they're going to make the pick. That would be surprising for me. 3, 2, 1. The pick is in. Okay, so the Jackets do wind up taking 14th overall. That's surprising. I thought they would have traded 14th overall. They do wind up selecting it, so we shall see who the Jackets take with 14th overall selection. At this point, I had Aitchison going there. There's Aitchison, there's Hensler, there's Smith. There's 3 really solid defensive prospects here. You have Eklund, who's fallen in the draft a little bit. You also could see going after a center. Coots is one of them. Lakovic, Rybikin. There's a couple of interesting pieces here. So I do wonder who the Jackets wind up going after. We'll have to wait and see. The Jackets are announcing their pick. They're having Johnny Gaudreau's wife announce the pick. So very interesting note there. I do wonder what happens here, 14th overall. I do think it'll be a defenseman. I picked Aitchison in my mock draft, but Hensler and Smith, who I predicted ahead of them, is still available. So I do wonder if they maybe go a little bit off range here from what I was expecting and go either Hensler or Smith. I do wonder about that. Just to respond to Evan, the Leafs have not made a trade yet. They, at this point in time, still don't have a first round pick. They did sign John Tavares earlier to a 4-year extension with an AAV of $4.38 million. A really solid deal in my opinion. I definitely think it's a great extension here for the Leafs to keep Tavares around at under $5 million. But when it comes to trades, the Leafs have not made any. I do wonder if they maybe make a trade tomorrow. I don't know if they'll make a trade at this point in time, but I definitely do think they'll make a trade at some point. You gotta think that, especially with them maybe moving pieces. I've heard Nick Robertson's name be out there today. Frank Cervalli's mentioned vaguely that maybe they could trade Brendan Carlo as a possibility to try and free up cap space. I do wonder if they try and make some sort of a move, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But at this point in time, the Leafs have not made a trade yet, Evan. So very interesting note there. On the Columbus Blue Jackets just made their selection. It is Jackson Smith. Okay, so the Smith falls. It has stopped. He was the highest draft selection in my mock draft that has fallen. No surprise here, Jackets take him. A solid left shot defensive player. Aitchison was the guy who I was expecting because I thought Smith and Hensler would have already been taken off the board, but the Jackets take Smith. Really solid puck-moving left shot defenseman. I think he's going to work great wonders on the Blue Jackets core. You already have Matejchuk. You have Werenski. You have a couple of other really solid defensive players. You have Severson, he's a little bit older, but he's still a solid defenseman. Interesting note there. So it'll be very interesting to know what else happens with the Columbus Blue Jackets. But Smith, all in all, really solid selection. Puck moving, top 4, left shot defenseman, really solid guy. I definitely think he's going to be a great selection here. Evan says that his prediction is that the Leafs sign Marner and then trade him for Jason Robertson. That's a very interesting scenario. I personally do think Marner will leave via free agency. It seems like Marner's agent is high bent on him hitting free agency and not winding up trading him or signing an extension for a sign and trade or things like that. So while I do think your proposal is very, very interesting, I personally do think Marner will wind up hitting free agency. But if Marner does hit free agency and they have enough things and Robertson doesn't wind up wanting to extend, I could definitely see the Leafs be a very, very likely trade target for Jason Robertson. Like, Robertson's, I think, second on my end-to-end hockey trade bait list. I think there's a very likely chance that if Robertson doesn't want to extend, that he gets moved at some point this offseason. Leafs, they would need someone to fill in the top 6. He's only making $7.5 million for this upcoming season. Robertson will make a really good fit, in my opinion, for the Dallas Stars, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, if Dallas does wind up deciding to trade him. So I don't think Marner will sign and trade for Robertson. I don't see that happening because of how really hell-bent the Marner's agent is on him getting to free agency and not doing a sign and trade. But I could definitely see Robertson be a landing spot in Toronto, especially if they don't trade Nick Robertson. I think Robertson joining his brother in Toronto will be a very interesting addition there for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I do like your proposal, but I definitely just don't see Robertson getting moved from Dallas. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But going back to the draft selections, Jackson Smith finds in Columbus. Very, very solid addition there for the Jackets. Like I said, Werenski's already there. They have Severson. They have Matejchuk. There's a couple of other really solid young defensemen that they have in the system and they also have at the NHL level. So I definitely think adding Jackson Smith, I think long term, will be the second line left shot defenseman beside Zach Werenski, maybe playing with a guy like Severson or Matejchuk long term. And there's also been some talk about the Jackets still trying to acquire a right shot defenseman. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But I mean, adding Jackson Smith is a really solid addition here for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So very interesting note there, but Jackson Smith has indeed wound up going to the Columbus Blue Jackets and stops his fall from where I had him going at number 9. So very interesting note there. The Vancouver Canucks now going to be on the clock. So I do wonder if the Canucks wind up making some sort of a trade. So it'll be very interesting to see if the Canucks do wind up doing something like that. There's been some talk today about moving the 15th overall pick for some sort of a middle 6 forward. I could see them, if they do want to keep in the pick, I originally had them taking Bear in my mock draft, but with Bear now gone, that's not a possibility. So players who have fallen out of the top 15 at this point that are still on the block. Hensler's one of them. Eklund's another one. Aitchison's another one. Everyone else I think's already been taken. I think those are the 3 guys who are still on the block who could wind up getting moved. You've got Aitchison, you've got Hensler, and you've gotten Eklund. So if the Canucks really wanted another top-end winger, I think a lot of people expected Eklund to go in the top 10. I have him going 12th overall. He's falling a little bit here. I do wonder if the Canucks maybe stop his fall if they keep the pick. I do wonder about if they want to go defense, Hensler, Aitchison. Both those guys I predicted to go ahead of Vancouver, but the Canucks just really wound up being lucky that they were able to take him potentially. So I do wonder about Hensler. I do wonder about Aitchison. I do wonder about Eklund. If they don't go either of those 3, I'm thinking Lakovic. I'm thinking Carbonneau. I'm thinking Coots. I'm thinking Rybikin maybe. Like one of those 4 players will probably wind up being taken here by the Canucks. I do wonder if there's some sort of a trade here for the Vancouver Canucks. That's a possibility in my opinion. The Canucks hold a top 15 selection for the 7th time in the last 10 seasons. So it just shows you how bad of a team the Canucks have been over the past couple of years, even though they made the playoffs a couple of years back. So very interesting note there. I do wonder what the Canucks do here. I could see them wind up taking someone. If they really wanted some defensive help, Hensler, Aitchison have both fallen a little bit. If they wanted a top-end winger, I could see them go after Eklund. If they really wanted to trade the pick, I could see that happen too. Like, if they don't trade this pick, the Islanders have back-to-back 16th, 17th overall picks. Then you have Calgary, then you have St. Louis, then you have Columbus, Ottawa, Pittsburgh again, Nashville. Like, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen there. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. Canucks have a minute and a half left to decide whether they're going to use the selection or not use the selection. So we shall see what happens there and what happens with the thing. So very interesting note there. The Canucks, they're just talking right now. So I haven't seen anything indicating that there's going to be a trade. There's a possibility. It's probable, I guess, given what the Canucks have been offering. I mean, there's a rumor out there that they were offered 15th overall plus something for Rossi. So very interesting note there. Notable 15th overall picks recently: Caulfield, Larkin, Miller, Carlson, Kovalev, Sakic, McInnes, Bossy. That's just what they're showing on Sportsnet right now. Very interesting note there. Some pretty good players over there at 15th overall. So we shall see who ends up going to the Vancouver Canucks, or if the Vancouver Canucks even make the pick. So we shall see on that. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah, we know Jackson Smith went to Columbus. Not exactly sure what else could happen. Let's see. Yeah, it's looking like the Canucks are probably going to make the selection. I do wonder about that. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9 seconds left for the Canucks to make a decision, pick or trade it. 6 seconds left. They got to make a decision here quick. 3 seconds left, 2, 1. The pick is in. So the Canucks, despite all the trade rumors that they were going to move the 15th overall pick, do wind up keeping the 15th overall pick. They are going to be selecting someone 15th overall. Very, very intriguing stuff here. So they'll probably bring someone out to announce the pick, and then they'll announce it. So I'm thinking if they want a defenseman, it's Hensler or Aitchison. If they want an elite level winger, it's Eklund. If they want someone maybe lower end, maybe more of a center type guy, it's Coots. It's Lakovic maybe. Coots and Lakovic, I think, are our top 2 center prospects left. You have Rybikin potentially. I could see that happen. So we shall wait and see here who the Canucks select with the 15th overall selection. They're reading off all of it. The Canucks are going to select 15th overall. They're selecting, still waiting on the thing here. Hold on, let me get a drink of water, and then we'll go back to see who the Canucks select. Let's see here. The Canucks select with the 15th overall pick in the 2025 draft, and it almost rounds out the first half of the draft. Let's see who's that. That is Coots. So Coots does go to the Vancouver Canucks. I have him going a little bit lower, 19th overall to the St. Louis Blues, but he goes to the Vancouver Canucks. Solid pickup here. Coots is a center. He's a really solid center. He is on the smaller side, I think. I think he's only like 6 foot. Hold on. Give me a second here. Let me check this out. Let's see. Coots. He led Seattle in assists and points this past year. That's junior Seattle with 26 goals. And I think it was and 26 goals and 63 points in 60 games over in the WHL. He's 6 foot, 183 pounds. He's a center prospect. He's going to be a very fantastic fit here for the Vancouver Canucks. Great fit. I do think long term he could be the team's second line center. I do think the Canucks still need someone who can help now, because I do think Coots is probably going to need 2 or 3 years of development time. But I definitely think in 2 to 3 years, when Coots comes to the NHL, he has the potential to be a very solid second line center behind Elias Pettersson. So as much as there are probably some better players available, I think Hensler is probably a better player. Aitchison's a better player. Eklund for sure is a better player. And also potentially a couple of other guys, Lakovic. I do think they go positionally here. And I think positionally, this is a very solid add here for the Vancouver Canucks, getting number 15th overall and getting Coots. So very interesting note there. So Some of the other top-end players who haven't been taken yet, you got Victor Eklund. A lot of people were expecting to be at least a top 10, if not 11th, 12th overall. He's now fallen. I do wonder if the Islanders use one of these 2 picks to select Eklund. Like, they already took Schaefer, so they took the top defenseman off the board. A top 10 level winger, I think, will be a very smart move there for the Islanders. On top of that, you have other guys they could try and go after. Just give me a minute here. Because you have Eklund, O'Brien's been taken between Smith, Lakovic, forward guy, can play center, can play wing, very versatile guy, could see him be taken off next. The Islanders now back-to-back picks, so it'll be very interesting to see what they do here. I could see maybe move one of those 2 picks and trade down. I wouldn't be one bit shocked if they did that. They acquired these 2 picks thanks to Montreal as part of the Dobson deal earlier in the day. I don't know who they could take. They already took a left shot defenseman, puck moving guy. I could see them maybe go forward here. So I think there's some of the better forwards available. Eklund, of course, who's fallen a little bit here. You have Lakovic, you have Carbonneau, you have Reshchny, Malcolm Spence is another guy. You have a guy like Colin Potter, Gastrin if they really want to go a little bit lower. So there's a couple of options here for the New York Islanders. I definitely think one of these 2 picks at least, if they do keep both of them, they will go forward. With the solid players that they do have, I could see Hensler or Aitchison actually wind up going maybe to the New York Islanders in 16 or 17. Very interesting out there. I do wonder if they do the similar thing that the Penguins did where they use the first pick, 16th overall, and then maybe trade down, maybe get a couple of extra draft selections. So we shall know there. I do wonder if they maybe try and do something like that. So keep your eye on the New York Islanders, their next team up in the draft. Once the Islanders' first selection of these 2 is finished, we're halfway done the draft. Once again, I'm only going to stay with you guys until about pick 23 or pick 24. So we're going to stay with you for about another 8 picks. And then I'm going to cut off the live stream and touch on the last few picks after tomorrow, a little bit earlier, maybe start the live stream. So we'll see on that. But I definitely think this is a solid pickup here for the Canucks. Coots, like I said, I thought he was going to go a little bit lower, but I definitely do think this is going to be a very interesting pick here for the New York Islanders. But I definitely think Coots long term will be a solid second line center for the Canucks. I do think he was fit-wise was probably one of the better selections the Canucks could have gone on. I do think Hensler, probably a better player. Aitchison, probably a better player. There are probably a couple of other guys who I think were better players. But it'll be very interesting out there. So pick 16 is the New York Islanders. I know it says Montreal Canadiens, but I didn't update it when the Islanders and Habs made their trade earlier today. So instead of the Habs having the 16th overall pick and the 17th overall pick, they do wind up actually having the New York Islanders have those picks. So very interesting out there. They're talking to Coots right now. Very interesting to see that. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but if you look at all these picks, very interesting out there. Look at the Islanders. They took Schaefer, top pair, left shot, puck moving defenseman. After moving Dobson, they needed someone who could really help that. Schaefer was the best player of this draft, so they go after Schaefer. Second overall, the San Jose Sharks. They take Misa. Add Misa, who can play left wing, to a top 6 that already has Eklund, Celebrini, and Smith. You're looking at a scary, scary top 6 going forward. And I think that's going to be a really solid add there for Michael Misa to the San Jose Sharks. Frondell goes third overall to Chicago. Solid center prospect. He's either going to be a solid 1-2 punch with the Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard, or the other possibility is that the Chicago Blackhawks put him as their top line center and move Bedard to the wing. That's another possibility. Fourth overall, Utah takes their future second line center in Caleb Desnoyers. Desnoyers, solid player. Thought he would go a couple of picks lower, but he goes at fourth overall to Utah. Very interesting out there. We're waiting and seeing what happens here with the New York Islanders pick. Let's see what happens. See what's happening here. So we shall see what happens. Let's see. I think they're just announcing the trade from earlier today with the Dobson deal. I think that's what's happening here because it says Montreal, but the Islanders definitely have the pick. So we shall see exactly what's happening here. They're probably just trying to bring in all the people here who originally were brought in to announce picks because Montreal now has no first round pick. So I think that's what's happening here. Just give me 1 second to see if that's exactly what happens. It definitely seems the Islanders still going to have those 2 picks. I do wonder if they do make some interesting move. So let's see, the trade alert is Yeah, Noah Dobson pick. The Islanders are on the clock, yeah. So they just announced the Noah Dobson pick as part of this deal. So very interesting note there. So the Islanders now on the clock. So we shall see what the Islanders do here. I definitely do think that they could go forward. I think Eklund's a very likely candidate here to go with the Islanders. We shall see exactly what happens. I think they're about to go a commercial break again, so we're going to see what happens with the Islanders. But they have back-to-back picks. They pick 16. They pick 17. I definitely think after taking Schaefer, they go forward here. Eklund is a very smart move there for the Islanders if they were to go for him. On top of that, I could see him go after Lakovic, makes sense. On top of that, the Coots was just taken, so hold on a minute here. Let's see some of these other top-end picks that could be taken. You have Eklund, you have Lakovic. You have Carbonneau. Carbonneau's another one. You have Reshny, Spence, probably one of those 5 guys if they were going for forwards. Defensively, you have Hensler. You have Aitchison, 2 really solid defensive prospects. You could also go after maybe a defensive guy like Cameron Reed, Sasha Boumadini. Both of those guys could potentially be there. I don't think Ravensburgen is going to go here. I do wonder where he's going to go because now the Flyers are off the board where I had him going in my mock draft. He seems to be a projected first-round pick on the goaltending side. So I do wonder which team. The Islanders don't need goaltending. Flames don't need goaltending. Blues don't need goaltending. Maybe Jackets at 20th overall if they do keep the pick, go Ravensburgen. That's a possibility. Sens don't really need goaltending. They have Merilainen. The Penguins, I could say the Penguins still take him at 22. 23rd overall, Nashville. They traded Askarov last offseason. I could see Ravensburgen fall to 23 and go to Nashville. That's a possibility. I don't think the LA Kings would take him at 24th overall. So I do wonder where Ravensburgen, who is a projected first pick goaltender, goes to. I do wonder about that. But for the Islanders, I definitely think they're probably going to get 2 forwards after taking Schaefer. Won't be surprised if it was 1 forward, 1 defenseman. I definitely think that the Islanders go after Carbonneau, go after Lakovic, Eklund, so some of those interesting pieces here. So very interesting note there. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments, down in the chat. What was your opinion on the Dobson deal? What was your opinion on the Coyle deal? Any other things that were surprising to you earlier in the day, like the Tavares signing, like the Bennett signing, like some of those other signings that happened earlier today? I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. Love to hear your guys' thoughts. The Islanders are in their draft room making their selections. This is the first draft without Lou Lamoriello as GM in quite some time. They already took Schaefer first overall, so they have options. They could go best player available, which in my opinion at this point in time is Eklund. They could go forward after already taking a defenseman. They have 12 seconds to make their selection. I do wonder if they maybe trade the 17th overall pick, trade down, get some more draft capital. I do wonder if that's a possibility. We'll have to wait and see on that. I definitely, like last year, first day of the trades, like first day of the draft, not very many trades. There was, I think, 4 or 5 pick-for-pick swaps. I know that Philly, Minnesota made one. Toronto, Anaheim made one. Utah and Colorado made one. There were a couple of other lower-end pick-for-pick swaps, but there was no player for pick swaps on the draft day 1, but there was a whole bunch of players and picks being swapped on draft day 2. So I definitely expect more action to happen tomorrow. It's not going to be as drawn out tomorrow. So this rounds 2 through 7 are always going to go a lot faster than round 1. So we're going to be with you for rounds 2 through 4 tomorrow. On top of that, I'm also going to be potentially, with the way it looks like it's going, I'm probably going to be with you guys for another 20-25 minutes, somewhere around there, until that 24th overall pick or 23rd overall pick gets announced. And then I'm going to sign off and do the other trades tomorrow. So, I mean, this is getting really drawn out. I thought with the decentralized draft it will be a lot faster, but it seems like it's actually going longer. So, very interesting note there. I definitely think the decentralized draft is just a one-and-done thing. I think they'll be able to go back to it next year. I will talk about the CBA in a second. There was some news on that earlier today too. I'll touch on that in a minute. That the Islanders are making their selection, so I just want to sort of figure out who the selection is. The Islanders, 16th overall, select Victor Eklund. Yes, the fall has finished. Eklund, who was expecting to go 11th or 12th overall to the Pittsburgh Penguins, is now going 16th overall to the New York Islanders to complete the first half of this year's entry draft. Very interesting pickup here for the New York Islanders. I think Eklund, really solid pickup here for the New York Islanders. I think he's going to be a great pickup here for the Islanders. I do think long-term, Eklund's going to be a very, like they already have Richie, who's going to be a solid top 2 center at some point in the next couple of seasons. They already have who is it? It's Yzerman. Yzerman's a really solid top 6 scoring forward. He's going to be a great addition there. And now you add Eklund. So you have a top 6 where long term you have Barzal, you have Holmstrom. You have Barzal, you have Holmstrom, you have Yzerman, you have Ritchie, and you have Eklund. Is that one of the best top 6s in the NHL? No, probably not. But is that going to be a much better improvement than the offense that they've been having over the past couple of years? Yes, it absolutely is. Eklund is 5'11", 170 pounds, put up 19 goals, 31 points, and 42 Hockey Allsvenskan games. Really solid player who played over in Hockey Allsvenskan this past year. And I think long term, you have maybe as your top 2 left wingers, Eklund and Yzerman going forward. That is going to be a scary thought for the New York Islanders. So very interesting note there. But the Islanders have taken with the 16th overall pick, thanks to Noah Dobson deal, Victor Eklund. So very interesting note there. So I'm going to be with you guys for about the next 7-ish picks. Probably will cut off after the Nashville pick, maybe the LA pick. We'll see how long it takes. And then I'll sign off, and then we'll see what else happens. I'll probably touch on the other signings and any sort of small trades that happen tomorrow. Maybe start 15-20 minutes earlier in my live stream tomorrow morning and touch on those things there. So we shall see what happens. The Islanders are going, Eklund's going to talk with the Islanders. We've already seen Schaefer talk with the Islanders, so they're just going through it. Now that's the second half of the draft. I do wonder if they maybe pick up the pace a little bit and speed it up a little bit. Like, I mean, look at all the teams who've already drafted. Islanders 17th, already drafted. Jackets 20th, already drafted. Penguins 22nd, already drafted. Predators 23rd, already drafted. Hawks 25th, already drafted. Predators 26th have already drafted. Sharks 30th have already drafted, Flyers 31st have already drafted, and in a couple of minutes, once the Flames have the 18th overall pick, the 32nd overall pick, Flames have already drafted. So with all of them already being like second or third picks in the draft, I do wonder if it maybe goes a little bit faster. Maybe we see a couple of smaller end trades, maybe just pick for pick swaps. I'll be with you guys for about another 20-ish minutes, 20 to 35 minutes, depending on how long this goes. Like, this is taking a long time. So it'll be interesting to note there. Very interesting. I think Eklund's actually William Eklund's. I think they're both related. So very interesting to note there. William Eklund is a top 6 forward for the San Jose Sharks. So Victor Eklund's going to eventually be a stellar addition there for the New York Islanders. So very good pickup here for the New York Islanders, and they definitely do like this pickup here, just stopping Eklund's fall. They're now on the clock with the 17th overall pick. I do wonder if they make some sort of a trade. That's a possibility, at least. I don't know exactly. Like I said, I'll be with you guys for the next little bit. Not a long time. I probably do have to get out of here at around 8 o'clock, so if those picks do end up taking a little bit longer than expected, maybe I go out at around the 21st, 22nd draft pick. We'll definitely touch on all the picks that I did miss today in tomorrow's live stream, so definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that, and we will definitely do that. So very interesting note there. We're just looking to see if there's anything here. Interesting. Yeah, we're halfway through the draft. So it took us 2.5 hours to get halfway through the draft, which is insane. I'm hoping that it starts to sort of get a little bit faster and hopefully do something like that. Like, I think Eklund pick at 15th overall. So if you look at some of the best picks value-wise at this point in time, Misa, Schaefer, of course, Frondell, top-end players, solid pickups here. I do think Martone dropping to 6 to Philadelphia and Hagens dropping 7 to Boston were steals for the Philadelphia Flyers and the Boston Bruins. Murka dropping 9th overall to Buffalo. That was another steal. Very interesting note there. McQueen, so I already predicted him to go there. A little bit off the board picks there and there. A little bit off the board pick there. Jackson Smith falling into the laps of Columbus. That was a steal. On top of that, the Islanders getting Eklund. That's a steal. So very interesting note there. But the Islanders, solid pickup here to take Victor Eklund at 16th overall. So we have 17, which is going to be the New York Islanders, thanks to the Montreal Canadiens, the trade that happened earlier today. 18th overall is the Calgary Flames, thanks to the New Jersey Devils as part of the Jacob Markstrom deal. 19th overall is going to be the St. Louis Blues. 20th overall is the Blue Jackets, thanks to the David Jiricek deal from Minnesota. 21st overall is the Ottawa Senators. 22nd overall, the Philadelphia Flyers, thanks to the Colorado Avalanche. Actually, no, it's the Pittsburgh Penguins, thanks to the Philadelphia Flyers and the Colorado Avalanche. The 23rd overall picks Nashville, thanks to Tampa Bay Lightning via the Tanner no deal. And 24th overall is the Los Angeles Kings. So it's somewhere around there, 22nd, 23rd, 24th overall pick. I will back out. I will call it a day. And then I'll definitely be out here tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, potentially a little bit earlier if we don't get to all of the picks, talking about all the things. So pick is in. So the Islanders actually use both the 16th and 17th overall pick. So I thought they might actually trade down, but they actually are going to be using the 17th overall selection. So very interesting note there. I do wonder who they take with the 17th overall pick. Let's see. I could see him go defenseman here. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a forward group that they go after. Let's see. And 17th overall, the Islanders take Sean Aitchison. Aitchison is joining the New York Islanders. This is a great day for the New York Islanders defensive core. Aitchison, long-term, looks to be a very fantastic top 4 left shot defenseman. So 1-2 punch on the left side, long-term. You've got Schaefer and Aitchison in the Islanders organization. The Islanders must be ecstatic with the future of their franchise and how bright it looks for the New York Islanders. So it'll be very interesting to note there. Aitchison is 6'1", 198 pounds, had 26 goals and 59 points in 64 OHL games. Aitchison, great player. I thought he would have gone 14th overall to Columbus. That's what I have going in my mock draft. So he falls a couple of spots, but not too far here. And like I said, left shot defenseman, had a great season over in the OHL. And I think long term. So now the Islanders have Eklund, Yzerman, Ritchie, long-term in the top 6, and you have your left side of the defense as Aitchison and Schaefer. If the Islanders, by some miraculous miracle, do pull it off and get McKenna next year at first overall, the Islanders will go from being a boring defensive-minded team who surprisingly got to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals but ran into a hot Tampa team, to a team who has such great potential and so many good young left defensive prospects, offensive prospects. They got prospects out of the wazoo now. So the Islanders, I think, will still try and make some moves. I wouldn't be surprised if Pajot got moved. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other people who got moved. And I definitely think there's a very lucky chance we could see some more major moves for the New York Islanders. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But Aitchison goes 17th overall to the Islanders. Now we have 18th overall Calgary. So I originally had them going Kendall. Kendall's now in Pittsburgh, so that's not a possibility that they could take here. So if you look at what other things Kendall could go, so if you look at what other routes the Flames could go for Kendall, I don't know. You got Lakovic, you got Hensler. Let's see. So you have Jackson Smith. Yeah, he's taken. You have Eklund's taken now. Hensler's the highest player I had in my mock draft who's still here. You have the Canucks. No, because Hioto's taken too. So I think Hensler is really the only player who was taken. Hensler, Carbonneau, Rybikin, I think are probably the 3 best players available. I could also see him take, who do they have at 20th overall? Lakovic. Lakovic's another one who I could see the Flames go after. Spence is another one, winger guy. I could definitely see that happening. We've got about 20-ish more minutes here, depending on how many we are able to get through. Flames are on the clock now. Islanders, Schaefer is met with the staff. Now both Eklund and Aitchison are meeting with the staff, so very, very interesting note there. It's going to be very interesting note there to see how the next few days go for the Islanders. Definitely expect them to be active. Let's see if there's anything brewing on the trade front. Like, there's been very, very quiet on the trade front after the draft started, like extremely quiet. So I don't know exactly what this team's going to do or what any of the other teams are going to do. So Aitchison goes 17th overall. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Like, I thought someone else could wind up doing something. Like, I don't know exactly what's going to happen there. Let's see. So at least we now know the basis of the Dobson deal. So the Dobson deal is going to be as follows. And tell me if you agree with this or not now. Dobson is dealt to the Montreal Canadiens with an 8 times $9.5 million contract. So that's a solid pickup there for the Habs. But in return, the Islanders get Heineman, Aitchison, and Eklund. Who wins that deal? Who wins that deal? I think it could be the Montreal Canadiens because they do get the better player here in Dobson. But long term, you might give up a top 9 forward in Heineman, a top 6 forward in Eklund, and a top 4 defenseman in Aitchison. Who wins that deal? Who? Like, I want to know, who do you guys think wins that deal now? Because I do think at the first point when we were talking about this in the video I'm going to post later, I was saying that was a win-win deal. But if they gave up Aitchison, Eklund, and Heineman for Dobson, like, who wins that deal? I definitely do really expect that this is going to be a deal that the New York Islanders win. Even if Dobson rounds out his defensive game, looks a lot better, this is going to be a really solid pickup here for the Montreal Canadiens. So very interesting out there. But that deal between Dobson and going to Montreal for the New York Islanders lands the Islanders Eklund and Aitchison. So very interesting note there. Flames now on the clock. They're talking to Aitchison. So they got about 3 minutes to make their selection. Originally, my mock draft, I had Kindell going here. I could see someone else be taken. Like, Islanders fans, you must be ecstatic right now. But if you go over to the Flames, do wonder what happens here for the Flames. Like, I definitely think we could see I think Hensler's a potentiality here. I think Carbonell's got to be a potentiality here. I gotta think there's a couple of other guys who are very interesting here. So it'll be very interesting to see who ends up going here to Calgary. If you look at their system, they have a couple of decent defensive prospects. Perek headlines it. They have a couple of decent forward prospects, but most of them have already graduated. I could see him probably go forward here. I thought they would go Kindell. I do wonder about some of those other top-end guys. Maybe those guys wind up getting taken by the Calgary Flames. Carbonell, you got Lakovic, you got a couple of other guys. So interesting out there. They acquired this pick as part of the Jacob Markstrom deal, so it's an added pick. They didn't have their own first-round pick, so they acquired an extra one, which is very interesting out there. They got a minute and a half to make their decision or trade. We shall see on that. Interesting note there, but some very interesting pieces here. Like, tomorrow, we're going to see some trade action. Players to watch out for if I don't get to the live stream before all the trades start to happen. I wonder about Cairo. You should be keeping a name on him. You should be keeping an eye on Rossi. You should be keeping an eye on Keandre Miller. You should be keeping an eye on some of these other very intriguing pieces here too. So we shall see what happens here. But at this point in time, the Flames are on the block. They're about to make their selection. They had the 18th overall pick. Aitchison and Eklund were just taken by the New York Islanders. So we're going to be with you here for probably about another 20-25 minutes until the 23rd overall pick. So we got 18th pick, 19th pick, 20th pick, 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and then around the 23rd, 24th overall pick, I'll call it a stream. Do not forget to stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream. I'm going to be live streaming day 2, talking about the second through fourth round and any trades that happen. It'll be a lot simpler and smoother tomorrow. We're going pick after pick after pick after pick. Trades will be a lot easier to talk about tomorrow because it always seems to be that day 2 is a lot more busier than day 1 is. So it's been really slow here. I mean, you have like 5 to 10 minutes between draft picks being announced. Like, we could have even had it all over with. I thought with the decentralized draft, it might have been a little bit quicker, but actually seems like it's taking longer. So we shall see what happens. The pick is in, so the Flames do not trade the 18th overall pick. They are going to be selecting someone with it. I do wonder who that pick is going to be. I could see the Flames make a very solid move here, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. This is going to be a very interesting one. They're announcing it, of course, so we must wait and see what happens. Like I said, I thought Kindell would go there because I thought Kindell would still be on the board, but he went to Pittsburgh, so very interesting note there. I do think that some of these teams took some really surprising chances. Coots to Vancouver is a little bit of a surprise in my opinion. Philadelphia going after Nesbitt was a little bit of a surprise. Seattle taking O'Brien, what wasn't an improvement, was a little bit of a surprise. So this is the first of 2 picks for Calgary. They have their own first-round pick. They have their Devils' first-round pick thanks to the Markstrom deal, and they have the 32nd overall pick thanks to Montreal via the Florida Panthers. So they do have 2 first-round picks here to use. They're going to be selecting the 18th overall pick in the 2025 draft. So we shall see exactly who ends up being taken by the Calgary Flames. And let's see. Hold on here. They're just announcing it. So just give me one quick second to see who they're announcing. I think really quickly here, Hensler, maybe if they want to go defenseman, Carbonell, Lakovic, maybe one of those guys that they want to go forward. I think it's probably one of those 3. Maybe we'll see We'll see who it is. Rybikin, maybe. We'll see. And the 18th overall, Calgary takes. It is Reshcheny. Okay, Reshcheny, I had going a little bit lower here. Actually, I think I had him going to Montreal at 17th overall. I might be wrong on that. He was either 16 or 17 or 25. So right around where the Calgary Flames are picking. This is a fantastic pickup here for the Flames. Another solid center prospect. We know that lots of teams could use centers. Now Reshcheny, if you look at his stats, he was a forward. So he can play center, he can play wing. He's 5'10", 187 pounds. So definitely a guy on the smaller side. But we know the Flames not opposed to taking players on the smaller side. Just look at Johnny Gaudreau. Look at how well that turned out for the Flames. So they take Reshcheny. He had 26 goals, 92 points in 62 WHL games. Really solid pickup here for the Flames. I think I had him going 16 or 17 to Montreal in my mock draft, if I'm correct. So going, 18th overall to the Calgary? Not too surprised there. And I do think long-term, I don't know if he's got the size to be a second-line center. He sort of reminds me a little bit of a Marco Rossi type guy. He can be the center, second-line center Calgary long-term. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of rounded out into a middle six winger or top six winger for the Calgary Flames. So really solid pickup here, but Reshcheny goes to Calgary. Great pickup here for the Calgary Flames as they take him 18th overall. So now the St. Louis Blues will be on the clock. They just did a rebrand. They have a little bit of a slightly different logo, a little bit of a lighter blue color to it. So very interesting note there. This is going to be a very interesting pick here. There's been some talk about them moving Kyrou. Obviously, that didn't happen at this point in time. Maybe it happens at some point later on. We'll have to wait and see. They're going to be on the clock in a minute here. So I'm going to be with you guys for about another 4 or 5 picks, and then I'm going to be shutting it off. So we'll see what happens here. I definitely think this is going to be a very, very, very intriguing pick here for the St. Louis Blues. I think we're supposed to go center, maybe defense. I don't think they'll take a winger. If you look at the center prospects that are left, I originally had them going Coots, but he's now off the board. So Lakovic, he sort of dropped a little bit here. I originally had him going 20th overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets, but a lot of people had Lakovic going higher. So I do wonder if maybe he's taken here. You have Logan Hensler, solid right shot defensive player. Now the Blues could definitely use another top end defensive prospect. So I do wonder if they go after Hensler. You have Carbonneau, winger type guy. I don't think they'll go after a winger. You have Spence. You have Spence, who's another winger. Cameron Reed's another guy who I could see him go after, as well as Sasha Boumadini. So I do think they could go after defense or center here. So it's going to be very interesting note there. The St. Louis Blues are going to be very interesting to keeping tabs on over the next little while. They haven't made, I don't think, any trades, but there's been lots of talk about them going after a Kyrou move, trying to maybe add some more top 9 help to their forward group. We shall see exactly what happens there. I don't know exactly which way the Blues are leaning at this point, so we'll have to wait and see. I definitely do think it's going to be a very interesting pickup here for the New York Islanders, or the St. Louis Blues, for whoever winds up going to them. So leave a chat down below. Who do you think the Blues are going to go for? Is it going to be Lakovic? Is it going to be Spence? Is it going to be Carbonneau, Hensler, Reed, Boumadini? Who do you think winds up going to the St. Louis Blues? Definitely think it's a possibility. We could see a very, very major pickup here for the St. Louis Blues. So we shall see what happens here. Just give me a second here. So very interesting note there. I do think this is going to be a very good pickup here for the St. Louis Blues, with whoever they wind up drafting. So leave a chat down in the chat below. Who do you think St. Louis goes for before it actually happens? They are on the clock now, so we have to wait and see what happens. But let me know. Personally, I think it's either Hensler or Lakovic. I think it's one of those two guys. If they wanted a defenseman, they go Hensler. If they wanted a center, they go Lakovic, because Lakovic's a versatile guy, can't play center, can't play wing. I do think that could be a really solid add there for the St. Louis Blues. So let me know down in the chat. Who do you think St. Louis goes 19th overall? Is it Lakovic? Is it Hensler? Is it one of those other guys that I haven't mentioned yet? Let your guys' thoughts quickly before this pick comes in, because it's coming in fast. So I think we got about 2 minutes left before the Blues make this decision. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens here. I'd love your guys' thoughts on who you think the St. Louis Blues are picking. It's going to be a very intriguing selection. I don't think they'll trade it. I don't foresee that happening. I don't think that will happen. They have a minute and a half left to make their decision. I definitely do not think St. Louis will do that. If you look at the highest points per game in the 2025 in the WHL playoffs, Breshny, who was just second by Calgary, was second. The third guy was Cristall, who was in Washington. The first guy was McKenna, who is going to be a top-end pick next year. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But Breshny had a really good season over in the WHL playoffs. So I think it's going to be a really solid pickup here for the Calgary Flames long term. So we'll have to wait and see. Once again, let me know down in the chat. Who do you think will wind up being the pick for the St. Louis Blues? Is it Lakovic? Is it Hensler? Who is it? We got to know in about a minute's time. So definitely, if you haven't already, make your predictions down below on who you think St. Louis is going to take at 19th overall. It's going to be a very interesting selection here for the St. Louis Blues. We're almost there. We'll probably be about 2 or 3 minutes away from it being officially announced. So don't forget to stay tuned for this. Once again, lots of intriguing things. I don't foresee the St. Louis Blues trading the pick. I don't see it. I don't think it'll happen. They have 30 seconds left, so we shall see exactly what the St. Louis Blues do here. I could see them maybe trade it, but I highly doubt that happens. So we shall see exactly what happens here for the St. Louis Blues. I'm not exactly sure what happens. Let's see. Once again, I'm going to be probably ending this stream around the 23rd, 24th overall pick, and then I'm going to wind up talking about the rest of the picks tomorrow. Probably start the live stream a little bit earlier and maybe just talk about all the picks and maybe any trades that actually happened. So we'll touch on that tomorrow. We've got a lot of things here. Gary Bettman's going to announce the pick, so they did not trade it. Once again, quickly, if you haven't already, leave a comment in the chats below. Who do you think St. Louis is going to go with the 19th overall pick, especially if you're a St. Louis fan? So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that. The picks being announced. So like I said, I think Hensler or Lakovic, one of those two. I think it's got to be one of those two for the St. Louis Blues. Let's see if the St. Louis Blues, let's see who they wind up taking 19th overall. We're almost into the 20s. Very interesting stuff there. Like, this has gone on for a while. Like I said, tomorrow's draft video be a lot smoother because it usually goes pick. So very interesting note there. I don't foresee any sort of long-term things for tomorrow, so we should see some things about that. So we shall see what happens here. But St. Louis is about to make their pick. They got their new logo. They've got their new jerseys. Let's see who's about to become the newest member of the St. Louis Blues. They're about to announce it. I'm thinking Hensler if they want to go after defense, or I'm thinking Lakovic if they want to go after center. The St. Louis Blues, with the 19th overall selection in the 2025 draft, the St. Louis Blues are selecting, give it a minute, just one more moment, and the St. Louis Blues are going to be selecting, one more minute, just wait a sec, who's that? Who is that? The St. Louis Blues select Justin Carbonneau. Okay, someone who I thought could go to St. Louis, but I don't think they needed any wingers. So they go Carbonneau. I had him going, I think it was either 16 or 17 to Montreal in my mock draft a little while ago, and now he winds up going to the St. Louis Blues. Right winger, solid player. Let's look at some of the stats that he's had from the past little while. I like looking at the stats here, so let's see what some of the things are saying about him when it comes to Carbonneau. Let's see, Carbonneau is a right winger. He's 6'1", 192 pounds. He got 46 goals, 89 points in 62 games in the QMJHL. Really solid player there for this in the QMJHL. I think long-term Carbonneau has the ability to be a top 6 winger with a future of guys like Snuggerud, Thomas, and those guys, Buchnevich. Long-term, Carbonneau is going to be a great fit in the top 6. He's a bigger type guy, 6'1", not too small, not one of the bigger players of the draft, but is on the bigger side of things, and I think will be a very tough, maybe second pair line forward to play against long term. So very interesting note there. But the Blues now have a new logo, they have a new jersey, and the newest member of the St. Louis Blues is Justin Carbonneau. Very interesting note there. So now we have the 20th overall pick, and this is where it gets interesting, because now we have teams basically getting second picks. So 20th overall will be the Jackets' second pick. 20th overall will be Ottawa's first pick. 22nd overall will be Pittsburgh's second pick. 23rd overall will be Nashville's second pick. 24th overall will be LA's first pick. 25th overall will be Chicago's second pick. 26th overall, Nashville third pick. 27th, 28th, 29th are Washington, Winnipeg, Carolina's first picks. And then San Jose's second pick, Philadelphia's or Pittsburgh's third pick, and Calgary's second pick. So very, very interesting note there. I do wonder what we could see here. So you have 22nd overall. So besides LA's 24th overall pick, Ottawa's 21st overall pick, and then the Caps, Jets, and Canes, there are multiple picks now for every other draft selection in the first round. So I do wonder about the Jackets can potentially trading that pick, 20th overall, for some sort of an improvement. Rasmus Anderson comes to mind. Jordan Kyrou. I do wonder about some sort of a huge improvement right now for the Columbus Blue Jackets. I do wonder if they try and do something with that. So I do wonder if we see a trade here for the Blue Jackets. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if the Jackets do wind up maybe keeping the pick. That's a possibility, I guess. I think Pittsburgh and Nashville are also very likely to move. So we have 4 picks. We'll probably, with the way it's gone, be with you for about 15 to 20 more minutes. We'll probably end this stream at around 8:15ish with the way it's going right now. And then after that, I will sign off and we'll do the rest of the picks tomorrow, what happens. So we shall see what happens there. We are almost done with this live stream. I thank you for all of your support. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your chats. Thank you for your comments if you're watching this video later on. Love to hear your guys' thoughts on what you think so far of the draft. Love to hear your guys' opinion. And once again, do not forget to stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream. It'll start at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I might start around 9:45 a.m. Mountain Time just to try and get a little bit of a jump to the game. Might try and be talking about some trades that happen. On top of that, I could see them do some other things. So we'll have to wait and see how tomorrow goes, but I'm planning on it being at least at 10 a.m. and 9:45 a.m. potentially to maybe just go over what the last few picks were for this past draft. So we shall see. I'm going to be with you guys for about the next 15-20 minutes as the last 4 picks get drafted, and then once Nashville's pick gets finished, I'll probably sign off for the day. But still, we've had a very, very interesting and exciting draft. We saw 1 trade so far while the draft's been going on, but we did see 2 trades earlier, including involving the 7th overall pick on the Internet Hockey Trade Bay list and the 24th overall pick on the Internet Hockey Trade Bay list in Coyle and Dobson. So those were some very interesting moves. I do wonder if we could see some more moves happen later on. It's going to be very interesting to note there. They're just in commercial break right now. So when we get back, we will probably see who winds up going to the we probably will see who ends up going to who was it, Columbus, or if Columbus winds up moving the pick. So we shall see what happens here. I'm just checking to see if there's any sort of updates when it comes to the Jackets pick. Maybe they can potentially trade it. If they do, and it's just hypothetical, if they do keep it, who could they go after? They just took Smith, 14th overall. When I did my mock draft, I had them going best player available, which at the time I thought was Lakovic. With all the players that had been taken, so you have Carbonneau, Reshchny, Kindell, Bear, Smith, not really a whole bunch here. I mean, Nesbitt and Kindell were really the only 2 really off-the-board picks in my opinion, and they're both gone. So I do wonder about Lakovic, who I originally picked Columbus to take if they kept the 20th overall pick. I wonder about... who else was it that I had here? There was someone, Hensler. If they want to go for another defenseman, best player available, I think they go after Hensler. If they didn't want to go best player available, I could see them go after just getting a forward after already acquiring Smith and getting Lakovic. So if the Jackets don't move the 20th overall pick, those are probably the 2 players I'd be looking at here. It's either Lakovic or it's Hensler, so I definitely think one of those 2 are going to Columbus right here. So I'll have to wait and see on that. Once again, tomorrow, it'll be a lot quicker, it'll be a lot easier to get through. We'll be going pick, so very interesting note there. The Dallas Stars, Jim Nill has just won the GM of the Year award. We talked about awards in the last few trade rumor videos and news update videos. So Jim Nill is once again the Jim Gregory GM of the Year award winner, so very interesting note there. I don't think it comes to too much of a surprise because he always seems to win it for some weird and odd reason. He's a really good GM. He always builds really good teams. I mean, 3 straight years, the Western Conference Final has included the Dallas Stars. It just hasn't been able to get over the hump and beat Edmonton or Vegas. So it'll be very interesting to note there, see what exactly happens. But Jim Nill has indeed been announced as the Gregory GM award winner, so very interesting note there. I'm already stumbling over my words. You can see I need to stop the draft, but I'm going to stay with you guys for the next 4 picks, maybe 3 picks. We'll see. Maybe I'll stop at Philadelphia's. We shall see exactly what happens there. But once again, probably going to do a quick first round recap with about 15 minutes to start in my live stream tomorrow. So probably going to start around 9:45, and then at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, the second round of the draft starts, and we're going to be seeing a lot of movement tomorrow. So definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. So there'll be some very interesting updates there when it comes to the draft tomorrow. And then once again, after the draft lottery or the entry draft tomorrow, after I do rounds 2 through 4, I'll be doing a draft recap, recapping the first round of the draft and how it wound up finishing. Also recapping some of the trades that went down. Like I have the Dobson one coming out potentially after this video's done, but I'll have one talking about the Coyle trade, talking about some of the other trades, some of the pick for pick swaps that we saw. So we're gonna have some more things coming around there. But definitely having some more content coming out over the next couple of days. So do not forget to stay tuned. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe on the videos. And once again, on Tuesday, Canada Day, we'll be sitting in the morning with you talking about free agency, which is going to be a plethora of very interesting moves. Usually on free agency day, you don't usually see a whole bunch of trades. You might see 4 or 5 of them, but you do see a couple, and then you see a whole bunch of signings that are going to be very interesting out there. So I'll also be trying to, over the next couple of days, update my blog so I can have a full 50-player free agent board. I'll hopefully post that at some point next week, maybe Sunday or Monday, just before the draft happens. So I'll probably try and aim for something like that. So we shall wait and see. The Jackets pick is on the clock right now. So like I said, if they do, once again, I'll love to hear your guys' thoughts in the chat down below. What do the Jackets do with this pick? Do they acquire the pick? Do they, move the pick? Do they use the pick? If they do use the pick, do they go after Lakovic? Do they go after Hensler? If they don't go after Lakovic or Hensler, could they go after Spence? Could they go goalie here and go Ravensburg? And that's a possibility too, especially with this team needing some more goaltending help after moving Tarasov yesterday. So I could see some of those things happening too. So we're going to have to wait and see on that. But keep your eye on the Jackets here. The pick is in. So they do not trade. So after all of the potential rumblings about the Jackets moving 14 or moving 20th overall, they keep both picks, and they are going to be selecting with the 20th overall pick. So I'm going to be with you here for about another 2 or 3 picks, depending on how long it goes. Like if it gets too late, I might cut it off at the 22nd overall pick. But if it's not overly late, I'll go to the 33rd overall pick. And like I said, we'll recap all the other picks tomorrow, and once again, we'll do a 2nd to 4th round recap as we're doing our live draft video. So very interesting note there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens here. The Blue Jackets pick is being announced. I'm going to say it's either Hensler or Lakovic. It's one of those two. I definitely do think it's one of those two. Let's see. I'm thinking Lakovic because I already went with Smith at 14th overall. I'm thinking Lakovic, but I might be wrong, and they may go Hensler. We'll have to wait and see. The pick is being announced. I do wonder if we could see Lakovic or Hensler go to Columbus here at 20th overall. And the draft pick is, let's see, wow. Someone who I did not have going off my board. They did take goalie, but they didn't take Ravensburgen. They took Pichori Andrianov. Wow. Okay, so Jackets do go goalie, but not who I was expecting. Oh my goodness. Andrianov. That's an interesting pickup here. I haven't even done much scouting on him. Let's see if we can find Andrianov. Goalie prospect, let's see. Nope. Wow. A lot of drafts didn't even have him in the top end of the draft. Nope. Didn't even have him as one of the top goaltenders. Let's see. No, I don't really have anything on Andrianov. Hold on. Let me see if I can find something here on Andrianov. Let's see. No. There's almost nothing here. Hold on. Let's see if I can find Andrianov. Give me 1 minute here. I'll try and get you some updates on what Andrianov looks well, not looks like, but what Adrianov seems to be for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Ottawa's pick is on the clock. They do not have a pick next year because of the forfeits. So we'll see what happens here. Let's see. So Adrianov, Pichori Androyanov. So let's see. He is playing the KHL last year, so that's interesting to note there. Very interesting. He is scheduled to play in the KHL next year, so he's a Russian goaltender. Jackets have good luck with Russian goaltenders. Look at how good Bobrovsky was for them before he left free agency. He's 6'2", 207 pounds. Last year played in the KHL. He played a couple of games in the KHL. He did play 44 games in the MHL, which is a lower league, putting up a .942 save percentage and a 1.75 GAA. This kid looks like he's going to be something. He was one of the lower goaltenders on the trade market or on the draft board, but Jackets go a little bit off the board here and take Adrianov. So I am shocked the first goaltender off the board is not Ravensburgen. Very, very interesting note there. So the Jackets now go here. So the Sens have the 21st overall pick. Sens are my second favorite team behind the Vegas Golden Knights, or the co-first best team. So those two are my top teams. So I cannot wait to see who the Senators go at 21st overall. Now, in my mock draft, I had 21st overall Ottawa going after Malcolm Spence, which is a really solid addition there, in my opinion, if they did get him. I do wonder if that's a potentiality because he's still on the board here. If they want to go right shot defensive player, which they do have a problem with at this point in time, I wonder if they go Hensler. I could see Hensler be a spot here for the Ottawa Senators. I don't think they need to go goaltender with Ravensburgen. I do wonder about Lakovic, if they want to go for a forward type guy and not Spence. I do wonder about Lakovic as a potential option here for Ottawa. I don't think they'll trade the pick. I don't think so, but we'll see if they wind up doing so. Once again, I'm just in shock of the Adrianov pick by the Columbus Blue Jackets. Sure, he looks like a good goaltender, but he wasn't even in most teams' top 3, like first round draft picks. That is shocking to see that the Blue Jackets. Wow. Okay, so we're almost done with our live stream here. We got the 21st overall pick, the 22nd overall pick, maybe the 23rd overall pick, and then we'll call it a night. And then I'll recap all of them tomorrow morning. So let's take a look. 30 seconds left for the Ottawa Senators to make their draft selection. And then we're going to have some very interesting things happening here. So let's see exactly what's happening. 15 seconds left on the clock for Ottawa to make their pick. So we shall see exactly what happens for the Ottawa Senators. I do think they'll make a smart move here before doing things here. We'll see. I might call it quits after a 22nd overall pick. I might call it quits after the next draft pick. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure. At 21st overall, I have to cover Ottawa's, like you think you have to. But after that, I'll probably do Pittsburgh's 22nd overall pick, and then we'll see what happens with the 23rd overall pick. So we'll see what happens here. At this point, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. It seems like the pick is in for the Ottawa Senators, so it seems like they are going to be making their draft selection right now. So we shall see exactly what happens for Ottawa, which is going to be very interesting to note there. Lots of interesting picks here. I mean, the top 10 really went a whole bunch like I was expecting. McQueen went 10. Murkow went 9 instead of 8. O'Brien went 8 instead of 11. Hayden's went 7 like I expected. Philly got Martone at 6 instead of 4. Nashville got Martin at 5 instead of 6. NYI went to Utah at 4 instead of 5. And Frondell 3, Misa 2, Schaefer 1. All went exactly like I was expecting. But like, after that, completely shaken up. Like Kendall went 7 spots ahead of where I was expecting. Nesbitt I didn't even have as the first round draft selection. Bear went 2 picks ahead where I was picking. Smith fell 5 spots from where I had him going. The Ottawa Senators have made a trade. Okay, that's interesting. The Senators are moving the 21st overall pick. Okay, they're one of my favorite teams. So let's see what this sort of draft select trade is. What is this trade for? Let's see. Right shot defenseman, moving down the draft. Maybe a top 6 forward. Let's see what the details are for this trade. Ottawa is trading the 21st overall pick. I don't even know who gets the 21st overall pick. The 21st overall pick to Nashville. Okay, so there's a swap here. So the Senators moved to 23 and in exchange Nashville gets 21st. The Senators get 23rd and 67th. So that's a third round pick in tomorrow's draft. And in exchange, the Nashville Predators take 21st overall. So Predators are now on the clock with the 21st overall pick. Then it'll be the Penguins with the 22nd overall pick. And then the Senators with 23rd overall pick. I'll probably just finish it at the 23rd overall pick like I was expecting. I know it'll be a little bit later than I was expecting. Probably going to be with you guys for another 15-ish minutes. Sorry it's going to be going so long. And then, like I said, tomorrow we'll be right back at it here for another round of very interesting stuff. So once again, very, very intriguing so far about how this has all come together. So 2 trades today. We had 2 trades besides the Dobson one and the Coyle one from earlier. So we had 2 trades since the draft started, and they were both draft swaps. 21st overall goes to Nashville for 23rd and 67 to Ottawa, and 12th goes to Pittsburgh for 22nd and 31st. Like, just swapping picks at this point. Very interesting out there. I guess it makes sense from Ottawa. It makes sense because Ottawa does need some more draft capital. They could use those later picks to try and move something. So we shall wait and see what happens there. But Ottawa makes a very, very intriguing move here. So I don't know who's going to... So Nashville. So Nashville trades up. We should look at what the Predators could be looking at here. So they just took Martin with the 5th overall pick a couple of hours back. So if you look at who they could go after, defenseman, I wonder about Hensler. Hensler could be a really solid add there for the Nashville Predators on the right side of the defense. Lakovic, once again, makes some sense. Spence was where I had him going around this sort of area. I do wonder about Ravensburg in here, trying to add some more goaltending help. I do wonder about Reshchin. Oh no, Reshchin's been taken. Rybikin. I do wonder about Rybikin. There's probably a couple of other guys here who they could try and take. Let's see. Hold on a minute here. Let's see who they wind up taking. Let's see. Go back down to the first round picks. Ravensburg, Reed on the blue line if they really want another blue line upgrade. If not, Hensler, Boumadini, Fiddler on the blue line side. I could go after Potter. Could go after Schmidt. Could go after Gastrin. Could go after, like we said, Lakovic. There's a couple of interesting pieces here. So the Preds do make a move with one of their 3 first-round picks, and it's just moving up 2 spots. And they do move off one of their third-round picks that they're going to have in tomorrow's draft. So very interesting note there. And once again, just a couple more minutes, and then we'll be ending it here. So once again, definitely don't forget to stay tuned for that. The Nashville Predators are on the clock. They're about to make the pick. So we're about to see the Nashville Predators select 5, 4, 3, 2. The pick is in. So the Predators do trade up. They do take the pick, and we shall now see who winds up being taken with that pick. So the pick is in for the Nashville Predators, which is very, very interesting. So we shall see who the Nashville Predators have. They're probably going to have someone come in and announce it. So my prediction is Nashville's probably going to go after Lakovic, maybe if they really want some more forward help. I do wonder about, if it's not Lakovic, Hensler. I think it's one of those two once again. I think it's either Lakovic or Hensler. Those are 2 guys who went to my top 20 who fell out of the top 20. So I do think a right shot defensive player would be a smart move there for the Nashville Predators to try and improve their bolster their blue line. I think that's a very likely possibility. Lakovic, if they want to add someone who could really help them in the middle 6, would be a smart move there for them too. So I think one of those 2 go to to Nashville. Let's see. It's Cameron Reed. Okay. Very interesting pickup here. I had Reed going 23rd overall. Actually, yes, I did. I had Reed going to the Nashville Predators. And he goes here, so they trade up to get him. So instead of taking him at 23rd overall, they leapfrog Ottawa and Pittsburgh, and they get him at 21st overall. Great move there for the Nashville Predators. Reed, I know they already took center prospects, so they go defense here, which is smart. I thought he would be a smart move there. He's 6 foot, 174 pounds. He's a left shot defenseman. He had 14 goals, 54 points in 67 OHL games. Was a very fantastic top 4 defensive prospect, I think, for Nashville. I think long term, with guys like Molendyke and some of the other younger prospects that this Nashville team has. I think he's going to be a great add there. I have him going to Nashville 23rd overall, but they trade up and he goes 21st overall. So that's a great pickup here for the Nashville Predators. They're now taking Reed and Martin with their first round draft selections and still have one more left. So we shall see what else happens here. Next team on the clock is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They are going to be taking the 22nd overall pick. They had the 12th overall pick, traded back to get 22nd and 31st. So we shall see what happens with 22nd overall here for Pittsburgh. Then we'll see what happens with 23rd overall with Ottawa, and then we'll call it a night, and we'll turn off the live stream. So just 2 more draft selections, and then we'll be ending the live stream. So it's very, very interesting stuff here. Thanks to all of you guys who have viewed the live stream. Thanks to all of you guys who have been watching the live stream. Thanks for liking the video. Thanks for chatting below. Thanks for commenting below. Don't forget to stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, talking about the draft, free agency, everything in between. We're going to have a lot of things to talk about tomorrow. So probably going to be lots more trades, lots more interesting things. I'm going to try and have 1 more, maybe 2 more videos come out later tonight, talking about some of the things that happened. And then, like I said, tomorrow we're going to have a first round recap video talking about what happened in the first round. And we're also going to be having some other very interesting things. So very, very intriguing to note here. But the Nashville Predators take Reed 21st overall, and now Ottawa will be on the clock after Pittsburgh. So if you look at Pittsburgh here, so they took 11th overall. It was Kindell. That's right. It was a surprise to me, at least. Kindell is a, let's see here. He is a right winger, 5'10", 101 pounds, like I said, on the smaller side. Guy can play in the top 6 long term for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He had 35 goals and 99 points in 65 WHL games and looked great in the Calgary organization in the WHL. But I think after already taking a smaller level winger, I think that the Calgary Flames, the Pittsburgh Penguins will wind up taking probably someone on defense. Hensler, maybe this is what he falls to. I could see Lakovic if they wanted someone who's a little bit more able to play different positions. I could also, I could also see Fiddler. I could also see Bumaduini. So I could see one of those guys. Hensler, it's probably between Hensler and Fiddler, because if they do move Carlson, which is a very likely possibility, they could need a right shot defensive prospect in the next couple of years. So I'm thinking probably Fiddler or Hensler. It's one of those two who I think will be going here to the Pittsburgh Penguins. I definitely think that's probably the play here for Pittsburgh. I could see it maybe happen. They have 2.5 minutes left to decide what they're going to do. I highly doubt they trade down again. It's possible, but I don't really see it. So we should see what the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to be doing here in about 2 minutes' time. And then, like I said, we'll do the Ottawa one, and then we'll call it a day. So very interesting stuff there. Very interesting to see how this is all played out. So very interesting to see all of this stuff. I think very interesting note there that the Senators and Predators made a swap. So the Senators will now have a 67 overall pick next in tomorrow's draft. So just a little bit of an extra draft capital there for Ottawa, which is why they traded down. So if you look at Ottawa here, Pittsburgh here. So I could, if they want to go forward, another forward after already taking Kindell, I could see Lakovic and I could see Spence. Probably the most likely guys to be taken here. Maybe Rybikin. Maybe Rybikin is a possibility here. Maybe it's a possibility. I don't think the Pittsburgh actually, the Pittsburgh Penguins could use some goaltending. Maybe they go Ravensburgen. That's a possibility. I could definitely also see Fiddler or Hensler wind up being moved there. So we shall wait and see. We have 2 draft selections left, and then we're calling it quits. So we are almost done here. The Pittsburgh Penguins are almost making their selection. Then we'll see what Ottawa makes as the selection, and then we'll call it a draft, and then we'll talk about the rest of the draft picks tomorrow. As I said, this is going on way longer. I think last year's live stream was 3 hours, maybe half an hour, 3.5 hours, 3 hours, 45 minutes. We're already at 3 hours and 15 minutes, and we're just getting out of this 20, and we're just getting into the 20s. This draft's probably not going to be done until 10 in the night, Mountain Time at least. So a very interesting note there. There's 30 seconds left for the Penguins. We'll see who they pick. Then we'll see who Ottawa picks. Then we'll call it a night. And then I'll recap draft picks 24 through 32 tomorrow before the second round starts. So we'll see that. The pick is in, so the Penguins, no surprise, made the pick with the 22nd overall selection. Letang's going back out there with his kid to announce the selection. So we shall see who the Pittsburgh Penguins take at, what would it be, 22nd overall now, instead of the Philadelphia Flyers having that pick. So the Pittsburgh Penguins with a 22nd overall selection in this year's draft will wind up taking, let's see, he's just announcing it right now. Who's that? Oh no, it's not Spence. Bill Zonin. Okay, that's a little bit of a surprise here. Zonin's another guy like Nesbitt I was not expecting to go in the first round. Very interesting note there. He's a right winger. I expect him to be probably one in the second round, one of the lower and second round picks. Let's see. Hold on a minute here. Let me see if I can find Zonin stats. Just give me a minute here so I can break down how Zonin did last year. Hold on. Oh, yeah, here. Yeah, so he was projected to be a late first round pick. So I predicted him to go early second round. He goes late first round. So very interesting note there. He's a left winger, 6'2", 190 pounds. He played in the QMJHL last year, putting up 28 goals, 55 assists, 83 points in 64 games. He had a really solid season over in the QMJHL. The Penguins have lots of history of drafting players in the QMJHL, so I definitely think this is going to be a really solid pickup here for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Zonin, I think long-term, sort of like a power forward type guy, could fit in that team's top six with Malkin, with Crosby, with players like that. Long-term, I think this is going to be a really solid pickup here. So the trade assets right now is going to be Philadelphia acquiring Nesbitt from the Pittsburgh Penguins in exchange for Zonin and whoever they get 31st overall. So we shall see what happens here. But Zonin, I thought it was going to be a late second round pick, but he goes early first round pick to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Very, very, very interesting note there as Zonin's putting on his Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. After that, Ottawa. I'm still liking Spence here. I think it's a very likely chance. If they don't go Spence, it's, I think, Hensler or Fiddler. They either have to go Spence, who I think is going to be probably the best available forward at this point in time. Solid left winger, can really play well. Or they go for right shot defenseman, which is a position of need for that Ottawa Senators team. So Senators now going to be on the clock after they do all the stuff with Zonin. Very interesting note there. And then we're going to have to figure out exactly what's next. So after the Ottawa Senators pick, I'll talk a little bit about the Senators draft selection, and they'll probably call it a day. We'll have LA's, Chicago's, Nashville's, Washington's, Winnipeg's, Carolina's, San Jose's, Pittsburgh's, and Calgary's pick announced tomorrow, or if there's any trades, then whoever does select in those positions tomorrow. I'll start my stream around 9:45 a.m. instead of 10 a.m. to sort of just go over what happened in the last little bit of the round one stuff. I have to go because I can't spend another 45, 50 minutes here doing another live stream. So I'm gonna finish the 23rd overall pick, call it quits. We'll do, once again, talk about it earlier tomorrow when we do our rounds 2 through 4 draft video. And then once again, after all those are done, then we'll start doing some of the interesting things. So very interesting note there. We're 3 hours and 20 minutes into our live stream. Sorry it's taking so long, guys. Ottawa's now on the clock, so I do expect Ottawa to make a pick here. I'm thinking it's Spence. I'm thinking it might be Hensler or Fiddler. It's one of those two that isn't a right shot defenseman or probably the best forward on the block. Maybe there's an outside chance it could be Lakovic, but I highly doubt that. So we'll have to wait and see. They're just talking this on, and Ottawa's on the clock right now. Very interesting stuff there. So, like I said, tomorrow I expect tons of movement in the NHL. I definitely expect more moves that we've seen from over the past little while. Definitely, day one of the draft always just seems to be smaller. You see a couple of bigger things happen before the draft actually starts, and then once the draft actually begins, you see very little of anything happen. But I definitely do think that tomorrow, usually draft day 2, you see a lot of very interesting movement. 2 years ago when I did my first live stream for draft day, it wasn't really a whole bunch of things to talk about, but last year there was a whole bunch. I think Sergachev was dealt on draft day 2, Thompson was dealt on draft day 2, and there were a couple of other very intriguing deals that happened on draft day 2 last year, so I'm definitely expecting some very interesting things. Once again, if you guys haven't already, check out my end-to-end hockey trade bait board. There are 43 players on there. I think minus 4 or 5 of them because they've already been dealt, but there are a couple of interesting pieces there that I do think would be very interesting for you guys to check out, maybe get a grasp of who could potentially get moved, and on top of that, maybe add a guy like Jordan Kyrou, who I didn't have on my trade bait board when I last did it, but I think will very likely wind up getting moved, so we're going to have to wait and see on that. But very interesting note there. Maybe a couple of other things too, because it did say that Utah moved their 4th overall pick. That never happened. Columbus moved one of their 1st overall picks. That never happened. So those 2 picks are also probably off my end-to-end hockey trade bait list. So we do have a couple of very interesting things. Just a minute and 20 seconds left until we announce the last pick for this live stream. Like I said, stay tuned. Tomorrow we're going to have a 9:45 a.m. live stream talking about rounds 2 through 4. We're going to do a little bit of a first round recap, touching on all of the first round picks I didn't get to in today's video. And then on top of that, we're going to have more things happening over the next couple of days. So very interesting out there. I definitely think we're going to see some major moves. Like teams that Elliot Friedman mentioned could be moving would be Buffalo. NYI, we've already seen them make some moves. Vegas, I've heard some chatter about St. Louis. We've heard Columbus. We've heard a whole bunch of, we've heard a gang of names be potentially mentioned as potential trade chips for the NHL who could potentially get moved. So we're now 3 hours and 20 minutes into our live stream. We are very close to ending it for the night. The Sens have 30 seconds left on the board before they wind up figuring out who they are going to be selecting. I personally think it's Spence or it's Hensler or Fiddler. If it's not, maybe Lakovic. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the chat below. Who do you think winds up going to Ottawa? Is it Spence? Is it Lakovic? Is it Hensler? Is it Fiddler? Or is it someone else? The Senators trade down 2 spots to take the 23rd overall pick from Nashville, get an extra 3rd round pick. They are picking, so not too surprised there. So we shall see who Ottawa picks at 23rd overall, and then we're going to be finishing up for the rest of the night. So almost done here for today. Once again, stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream at 9:45 a.m. Mountain Time, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, talking about the rest of the first round picks, and then also talking about the next few picks. So like I said, I can't stay for any longer. It was only supposed to be a 3-hour live stream. It's almost 3.5 hours. So this is my last pick. After this one's finished, we'll see what else happens. And like I said, might have a video later tonight talking about some of the other things that happen. Might have a video tomorrow talking about some of the other things that happen. So we shall wait and see what happens there. But don't forget to stay tuned for tomorrow's live stream, also for Tuesday's live stream. And yes, he does wind up going there. Number 13th on my mock draft, Logan Hensler is going to the Ottawa Senators. Great pickup here. Hensler's fall has stopped. I thought they might have gotten Spence here, but Hensler falls into their lap, and this is a very good pick there for the Ottawa Senators. Hensler's a right-shot defenseman, 6'2", 196 pounds, put up 2 goals and 12 points in 32 NCAA games. He's not going to put you up a whole bunch of points, but he's a very solid defensive-minded defenseman who has the opportunity to be a very solid top 4 right-shot defenseman. So I think this is a great pickup here for the Ottawa Senators. Hensler is going to be a great pick here. So players who wound up falling out of my top 23 that I had going in my top 23, let's see, Ravensburgen on the goaltending side for Philadelphia, who I am going there. Spence, Lakovic, I think are only 3 guys who I had going in the top end of the draft and didn't go. So keep your eye on those. If you guys are watching the NHL's live stream or any other one Alpha's live stream, I'd say keep an eye on Lakovic, keep an eye on Spence, keep an eye on Ravensburgen, and maybe a couple of other lower end guys like a Fiddler or some of those other guys. I think those are probably the more likely ones to be selected next. Once again, we're going to be doing a complete recap of the first round tomorrow, see if there's any other movement happening tomorrow. If so, that's all I'm going to talk about in this video. That's all I can muster for today. My throat's giving out. I'm going to have to do another live stream tomorrow, maybe a couple more videos over the next couple of days. So that's all I'm going to be able to talk about for today. But I'd love to see you guys. Stay tuned. Stay in this chat. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys. Thank you for everything that you guys have been able to help me do, get to 500 subscribers and continue to help support my channel. If you haven't already, like the video, leave a chat or comment down below talking about all the other things. Just to recap, at this point in time, we still have 9 picks to go, but the recap, at 23rd overall, Ottawa took Hensler, 22nd overall, Pittsburgh took Zanon, 21st overall, Nashville took Reed. 20th overall, Jackets go a little bit off the board here and take Adrianov. 19th overall, St. Louis took, oh crap, who did they take? Give me a minute here, guys. At 19th overall, the St. Louis Blues took, oh crap, who was it that he took? 18th overall, No, hold on here. 19th overall, St. Louis to Carbonneau. 18th overall, Reshny went to Calgary. 17th overall, Aitchison went to NYI. And then 16th overall, Eklund went to NYI. 15th overall, Coots went to Vancouver. 14th overall, Smith went to Columbus. 13th overall, Detroit got Bear. 12th overall, the Flyers took Nesbitt. 11th overall, Kindell went to Pittsburgh. 10th overall, McQueen went to Anaheim. 9th overall, Murka went to Buffalo. 8th overall, O'Brien went to Seattle. 7th is Hagens to Boston. 6th is Martone to Philly. 5th is Martin to Nashville. 4th is NYI to Utah. 3rd is Frondell to Chicago. 2nd, Misa to San Jose. And 1st overall, which no one came too much of a surprise, is Schaefer to NYI. So definitely, that's all I'm going to talk about here today. The Kings are on the clock. You will touch on the Kings draft pick and lower tomorrow. We'll talk about any pick swaps that happen tomorrow. We'll talk about any other trades that happen tomorrow. Don't forget to stay tuned for my 10 a.m. live stream talking about day 2 of the draft. Love to see you guys there. But for right now, for this video, that is it for this one. Remember to like this video, and for the others, remember to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this with all of you guys. So if you haven't already, don't forget to like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Don't forget to stay tuned for my tomorrow's live stream at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Don't forget to stay tuned for Tuesday's live stream at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, talking about the draft and free agency. Don't forget to stay tuned for any other videos that may be coming out later today or tomorrow after the live stream. And also don't forget to stay tuned for my blog, talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So check that out. I'll link that down in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. And stay tuned for a couple more videos. See you guys soon.